Oconomowoc Committee of the Whole for Tuesday, May 16th, 2023. Has appropriate meeting notification been made?
Yes, it has.
If you'd call roll, please.
Okay. Alderman Ellis? Not here. Alderman Spiegelberg?
Here.
Alderman Mulder?
Here.
Alderman Shellpepper?
Here.
Alderman Maroney?
Here.
Alderman Douglas?
Here.
Alderman Rozak? Alderman Altman Cloth? Here.
Thank you very much. Welcome, everyone, and thank you to all the department heads that have come back for round two. We really appreciate it.
Make it sound like it was on.
Yeah. We'll go back to our committee business, item 2A, to discuss the 2024 budget priorities. So I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Fry.
Thank you, Mayor. Last 2 weeks ago, we went through.
Closer. Microphone a little closer.
2 weeks ago, we had the department heads go through their items, and we ran short on time, so I've asked Joe Pickert to come back and discuss the utilities to open up tonight. And then as per the request of the council, Brad Bowen, Western Lakes Fire Chief, is here, and he'll talk about his, and then, excuse me, and then we will turn it over to the aldermen and get your comments, directions, thoughts. So with that, Joe?
Yeah, we ran short last time on two items that are worthy of more discussion. So items number 1 and number 4 on my list were probably, I'm assuming everybody read what I had put out there. And the lead service ladder replacement program, as I said before, has been going very good. We've replaced about 320 lead services to date. We've been doing that with funds that have been available through the state as grants. Those grant funds are no longer available. At least they aren't in the foreseeable future in 2024. So I want to discuss this more and try to figure out what we can do to keep the program going if that's the desire of the council. And there's a couple ways that we may be able to make this happen if you guys want to do this. So we're not a disadvantaged community, so the only loans that we could get are through the Safe Drinking Water Loan Program. That is at a reduced interest rate. If you have the flavor for taking out loans and putting the water department into debt, you know, we got the big well we're doing and $6 million there. Probably not the best idea to do that. But there are some other avenues. So if you think about, some of you were on the council when we talked about this several years ago, and we have some new people. But if you pass an ordinance that mandates that we are a lead-free community to the state of Wisconsin, that opens up the door to try to collect monies through our rates, our electric rates. So every single water customer, I'll just throw something out there, say it's 50 cents every month on your rates or something like that. And then we collect the funds, and the Public Service Commission allows us to use those funds on the private side to help support the replacement of those lead services and get the lead out. That is one thing that can be done, but you have to have the ordinance in place in order for the Public Service Commission to approve that. That would have to go before the Public Service Commission to make that approval happen.
Joe, I have a question on that.
Yes.
Is the fee only for those that still have lead pipes, or is it for the whole community?
Well, it would be for anybody that has a lead pipe, but it is only for lead pipes.
Okay.
If you have a copper service, it's not going to be to change that. It's not for somebody that has a bad plastic service and needs a change. It's just lead.
But everybody would pay the fee.
Yes, every single resident
Yeah, that was my question.
that has our
Okay.
water service would pay that fee. That is correct. So that is an option if you want to consider something like that.
And that would cover it on the public side
Yes.
or the private side? The private side.
The private side. The public side stuff, we're covering through our normal budget process, and we're doing with the street programs. So we will continue to keep doing that piece.
So we've been funding at 50%, right?
Yes.
And so that would allow us to continue to fund at 50%.
Yep.
The homeowner takes the
Yep.
other through the low-interest loan if they want.
That's correct. And then another thing, Lori and I have chatted a little bit about, and I think Mark and I have maybe said a few words about it too, but haven't really dove into it. But you could, the city could extend the loan to the lead service resident, and then they could put it on the tax roll, and you could pay it out over 5 years, and it'd be about $600 a year extra on their taxes till they pay it off. That's another option too. So,
I'm sorry,
yes,
don't we currently allow them to do that?
I
For half of it?
don't believe
No?
we do that.
We do it through
no.
the bank, don't we?
Yeah.
We
Right.
do it through the bank,
but it's not
yes,
on the tax.
but not on the tax roll, because the bank charges interest. Lori, we wouldn't charge interest, would we? We'd all have to decide. Okay, how you're gonna run the program, but that would be an option too. So there's a couple other options if you feel strongly about getting this out of your system in the city. Yes,
Just so everybody can understand the magnitude, about how many lead services are left to be replaced?
there are 740.
Times 600.
Yep, so you're looking at about $6 million to $6 to $7 million worth of work.
Is that both sides, 6 to 7 million, the public and the private side? Like total work?
Scott, that our side too, total? I think it was. Yep, all on the private and public side, that is right, yep. That's what I thought it was, I just wanted to make sure before I misspoke.
And so if we add the water rate case, then people that have already gone through this process will be contributing additional money to people that don't have the lead pipes,
Yes.
correct?
It'd be a
Every single, yeah, go ahead, Chad.
Well, I was gonna say, wouldn't it be, it'd be probably a minimal amount though, if we're spreading the burden out among the whole
Yeah, if you're doing
community.
every
It would
single
only be
water
people on
customer.
the, it'd be anybody utilizing the water service though, right? So it's not just property taxpayers, it's everybody.
Whoever has a water meter. It
Right.
doesn't matter who you are.
Whether
If
you're
you're even not in the
nonprofit,
city limits
yeah.
and you buy our water
Right.
from us.
Right.
And there's a few customers like
So
that.
it's really spreading the
It's
burden
a
out in
system-wide,
that sense.
yeah.
And it is a public benefit overall too.
Yeah.
Not just to.
Scott, how many water meters do we have?
I haven't crunched any numbers about that kind of stuff. I just wanted to throw it out there and kind of get you guys thinking about it, because if it's important to you, we can start down the path of exploring some of these options and see what they really would look like, you know? So just kind of gauging your temperature for something like this. And I might add, it is in the strategic plan. We identified it multiple years ago for safe and clean drinking water
So
for the community.
does lead-free community, does that mean like 100%, or is there like some threshold of a percentage
No.
that you have to be at?
No, it is 100%.
Really?
We would go after every single lead service in the community. Yep.
Just utilities.
Good evening.
Nice of you to join us.
So, okay, if you're ready to move on to the next one, you guys can think about that and just let us know, you know, what your thoughts are, and talk amongst yourselves and think about what you want to do. So the other one is a strategic plan issue also, or not an issue, it's a strategic plan identified project. And when it was put in there, it was for some time in the future. So figured we'd talk about it, because now it is sometime in the future. And with the possibility of Champion Fields becoming available, if the ball fields move up to the northeast region, that 14-acre piece of property would be a very, very good spot to put the next utility complex. Right now, the utility sits on approximately 5 acres of property. On our southern border, we have the wastewater treatment plant. We have the road next to us, and on the north end is the Public Works Department. And then on the west side is the river and the marsh, and there's really nowhere for us to expand. And we are definitely expanding the amount of wire and things and equipment and trailers and just the stuff that we have. If you ever drove by and went through the yard, it's pretty crowded. And so that's what originally drove the beginning of this conversation several years ago for the strategic plan. And then we had a needs assessment done, and when we did the needs assessment, we had the Public Works Department and the Parks Department also included in that needs assessment, and was identified, they're awfully crowded too, but it was identified that they could use more space too. So the thought is that if the utilities could move up to the Champion Field area or some other location, it doesn't have to be Champion Fields, but it would be a good spot for it. It would then allow that building to be utilized by the Public Works Department, and then that would give that whole building to the Parks Department. And everybody would have a lot more room for growth at that point. And the utility probably has the best funding sources to repay that type of a loan versus putting it into the general fund tax burden and just put it on the utility stuff. So that's why we decided to try to do something with the utility and then shuffle everybody else around and make room for everybody. It comes at a pretty steep cost. My guess is 30 million. That was from the needs assessment. We did the square footages and the cost per square footage, and obviously that can be phased. It could be, you know, maybe shrunk a little bit when you really get into it. That was just a very high level, spending 3 or 4 days with some guys and going through our trucks and what sizes of the trucks are and what parking needs we have for equipment. And it was very thorough when we did it also for the parks and the forestry department and the street department. So that's another thing. The other big piece of this is the parks has a vacant lot. You all know where it was. The old Serve tennis complex was going to go there. That no longer is going to go there, but they want to do something with that piece of ground. Currently, we utilize that for all of our dirt that we take out of excavations. When we have a water main break, the dirt we take out, we dump there. When we're out boring with our bore machine, there's materials that we pick up, we take there. When we take the vac trucks out, which is our most highly used pieces of equipment, to vac the dirt, that goes in and it makes kind of a water slurry, and we dump it out there and let it drain out and dry out, and then we try to take it to someone that needs fill. We're gonna be losing that spot, and we really don't have any acreage anywhere to go with that. The Champion Field area would be an area where we could develop a spot to put those to drain out in a good and safe manner, and then move the dirt along that way. So we're kind of getting crunched in our growing spurt here in the city, so.
Any
all I got.
questions? Yeah, any questions for Joe?
Why did you come back and present again? Did we say you went too fast last time or something? Did I miss?
Yeah, I felt like I was really cheated last time.
Did
And
you?
I wanted more time with everybody here.
You're gonna miss us.
Yep, that's right. And I, only have a couple months left, so.
So, Joe, if $30 million, if that's the number, like, over what period of time could that be afforded, do you think?
That'd be a 30-year loan.
30-year.
Yeah, yep.
That's to transfer everything over to Champion Fields, start moving and
Yeah, and
developing that?
like I said, that's a high-level number.
Right.
They told me about 26 to 28 million for the building, and then I added a few million for the dirt disposal area.
That's not gonna be on the street though, is that gonna be back off?
That'll be back in the back corner. It will not be out by the street. If you have any lay of the land picture, there's a lot of acreage, like 4 or 5 acres in that southeast corner. There's a drainage ditch line there. It would be back in that area. And then we would put some filtering ponds, settling ponds, and let it filter out through and go into the ditch and then in.
That does make the most common sense spot to expand utilities, right next to everything else. I just,
Keep everything together, keep the fleet people where they need to be and everything, so.
Thank you, Joe.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Chief Bowen. Thank you for coming and joining us.
right,
Joe
think,
took up extra time, so you're gonna have to move along.
you told me 30 slides or less, 30 minutes each? No. Just a couple of things. I know we have been discussing this for years, and last year was a lengthy year. So for 2024, our biggest priority is continuation of the sustainable staffing plan. Since we started that this year with 60% of the funding, we started to address some of the response times. So far, and I hope you all read Administrator Fry's update 2 weeks ago, I provided you a detailed account of where we're at so far this year with implementation of that plan, bringing actually a number of local residents back here into our community to serve our community. So we are on track with where we're at. However, what we've done this year right now is only allowing 2 of the stations to have an effective response force. So the 2024 budget, as we discussed last year, was to go another 20% of the referendum amount, which will allow a 3rd station to have an effective response force. What does that mean? Fiesta Cancun Fire, Station 1 and 3 were able to immediately respond with fire apparatus. The other stations had to wait for people to show up if they were available. So the 2024 budget is proposing so phase 1, we addressed the competitive wages, the battalion chiefs, which is the shift commanders, the supervisors. All 3 of them came from what I would call large metro departments. Now that they are 2 months in serving our communities, they are amazed at how busy we get compared to even their large metro departments. Wauwatosa, West Allis, New Berlin. Calls come in clusters here. They're not all spread out throughout a day, so we could get 6 calls at once, and that's where the effective response force at each of the stations is important. Also, our mutual aid is not close by. I'll use the example again of Fiesta Cancun. We called for mutual aid because we saw what happened 10 years ago down the road when we had the row of buildings go on fire. 5 of our mutual aid departments were unable to respond. So that's where ensuring that we have an initial effective response force. We're still going to need to call mutual aid, but this phased approach with hiring, training people, getting them acclimated is working this year, which is our continued efforts for next year. So as phase 2 was the addition of 6 additional full-timers, which again would allow another one of the stations to have that effective response force. And then in 2025 would be that remaining phase. As we move forward, the committee that worked on the sustainable staffing and funding plan really looked at long-term sustainability. You know, we can't phase this in and then do nothing. We have to continue to maintain the services, but within the 2 to 4% range is where we were looking at in order to maintain the services, to be competitive with our wages, attract people and retain people. So this is literally the slide that we showed last year. Again, the priority this year was getting 2 of the stations up to an effective response force, a consistent supervision, management, battalions, leadership and incident command, the fire inspector, and the administrative assistant on the finance side of the house. Those are all being implemented and phased in this year. Some of them were not started January 1st, some are starting next month, some are starting in August, and that's how we had laid out this year's plan. So going into next year, we do have the remaining months of their wages and benefits to account for, which is where next year we're not seeing a larger increase in daily staffing. That next bigger increase would be in 2025 to bring all of the stations up to that effective response force. So that's priority number 1. I'll just pause for any questions, comments, concerns. All right. Oh.
We need, we need 6 full-time staff to get the mutual response. Is that what you're?
So 6 additional will give us 2 more people per shift per day, which will allow 1 more station to have that effective response force of 5 people at it. We still will have 2 stations that do not have that staffing capability until we reach phase 3, which is why we broke this out into 3 phases, the 60, 20, 20. Go ahead, Matt.
Once the full 6.3 is rolled in, what's your total, what's the total budget for?
The total fire district budget will be about $12 million.
12 million, and of that, 10 million is salaries?
90% of it, yeah, a little over
So
11
10
million.
And ours is 35% of that?
Yep.
One of the questions when the referendum was going around was the amount of supervisors and stuff. I mean, some of these guys, like the shift supervisors, and, I mean, those guys are like working firefighters too, right? I mean, they're not just sitting in a desk somewhere. I mean, they're the guys that are out on a fire call or an EMS call.
Yep, they're on the road. The battalion chiefs are on the road. They work the same shifts as the firefighters, the paramedics. They go to calls. They're the initial incident commander. We just had a fire yesterday morning on Franklin Street. So we had the incident commander, which is the battalion chief, and then we had another, one of us in the management office come as the secondary chief, which is the operations, the safety, the logistics side of the house, and those two worked that incident together. One of the things that we are working with the fire board on, which kind of ties into priority number 3 for 2024's budget, is currently the management team is spread throughout all 6 stations. So HR is currently down in Dousman. My office is up here in Paps Farms. Very inefficient. We've been approached and starting to have some conversations to see if there is a very affordable way to do this, is to consolidate the management team, which could potentially find some efficiencies. You think about just driving from my office to Station 2, or for her to travel, or the EMS Bureau to travel from Okauchee to Paps Farms. There's a lot of travel time throughout the week. One of our proposals that the management team worked with the fire board and put out a kind of a 3 to 5 year plan to consolidate the management team. We're looking at, we could potentially eliminate 2 of the deputy chiefs if we can get more efficient with our location by consolidating us into one location, find that consistency, get the battalion chiefs truly working, get the staff out in the field. That will ease a lot of that pressure, and that's where we're proposing down the road to be able to phase out through attrition. We've got some retirements that will happen in the next couple of years that would allow that to happen as well.
With existing facilities, or we'd have to expand
So,
facilities? to
looking
make
at
it happen?
existing facilities or some public-private partnerships that some locations have vacant that might be willing to partner and look at the mutual partnership on that side of the house. So currently exploring those, and we would be able to discuss those at our budget discussions if that's something that you all see as a priority.
Other questions for Chief Bowen?
The last thing that we had in there was item number 2, managing policies. We've got 189 employees. Still, the majority will be part-time or apprentice. Legal updates are occurring constantly. We're in a whole new world with regards to human resources, laws changing constantly in our state, standards changing throughout the country. Many departments, many municipalities, especially for fire, have switched to what's called Lexipol Policy Procedures Development. Basically, they manage all of the policies, from HR policies to labor policies to a lactation room. They have 150 different policies that they maintain, that they put out there, that our staff has to annually go through training. It's accountability on both sides of the house. Our insurance company actually brought it up because the League of Municipalities will reimburse $2,500 a year, which isn't a ton of money, but right now we write all of our own policies. When they get reviewed by legal, there's a cost for legal review. So we did look into it. It is something that brought forward to the fire board that they would like to discuss as part of the budget. The initial transition of our current policies into theirs is a one-time cost of approximately $23,000, which we would be looking at potentially this year doing that. And then the ongoing cost of about $14,772, which is spread out between 189 employees going through that. And I don't know, Alderman Douglas, if your municipality uses it, but City of Waukesha, Town of Brookfield, Pewaukee are some of our neighbors that utilize it because they manage it with their own legal firm. They're updated constantly. If there's an update locally or statewide that occurs next month, the policies get updated and kicked out to our employees.
I think maybe it would be helpful for us to know, you're seeing this initial cost and then the ongoing cost, but you're also talking about some potential cost savings, like with legal and some other. I think it might be helpful for us to know what some of those cost savings would be against this.
Yep, we can break that down. Yeah, I don't think it's gonna be $10,000, but if it's, right now, we're spending about $20,000 a year on legal. Some of it's policy review, other items, but $2,500 from insurance, $3,000 to $5,000 from legal savings. So we cut that cost in half to about $7,000 to $8,000 annually, is what our initial review has been, talking to other municipalities that made the switch.
And when you wonder, I mean, there's also maybe a savings to situations that are prevented by having these policies in place. I
Yeah.
mean, that should circumstances occur, you're kind of
Good
covering
point.
your butt. So, I mean, I think
Yeah, great point.
there can be value in it there as
And
well.
Jeff Romer on the fire board, who works throughout the state, you know, when he goes into organizations, police, fire, and municipalities, really the only ones that he's seen that are 100% squared away with all of their policies are using LexiPol because they've got that depth. And they're constantly being updated. It's not something that staff has to do, which also goes to, as we're discussing, reducing some of the management team, a lot of that pressure gets taken off and is handled throughout this process. Any questions, comments?
Thank you very much, Chief. Thank you for coming. And Mark, now we're going to switch to Alderman, correct?
Yep.
So, again, this is a new format. We'll see if you like it, you don't like it. What we'll do is go around the horn. If you want to have any of the department heads come up and answer questions, you can do so. We'll just go around the horn from that standpoint. Matt?
Could I, recommendation that maybe we go department by department and everybody
That's fine.
responds, start with whichever, and then we are all having one conversation versus ping-ponging back and forth.
That sounds fine. And you're the architect of this, so that's not a problem.
I asked a question before that does nothing to do with any department. Have you guys made a determination yet on any of the items that were presented that you know are not going to be included, that you've already ruled out? Because you said some of these hadn't passed the vetting test yet. And so
Well, there's-
you might end up,
Yeah, nothing
Precluding
has
some of
been
them
pulled
anyways.
out.
what was that?
Nothing's been pulled out because we're not to that phase yet.
Right, but I'm saying, are there anything in here that, I mean,
Mark?
So really
being pulled
yeah.
out right now that aren't realistic options?
No, there isn't anything in here that we would just automatically think probably isn't gonna make it.
So
It'll
right
come
now,
down.
you're saying there's a budget that would support every request in here?
I'm not,
No.
so there's a difference here. So, right now, without us knowing state aids and all those numbers that are gonna be coming in and where our budget's gonna go, there's nothing out here right now. I mean, your largest item is the utility building, and that's gonna be, through rates and all that, so that's not a levy impact. But, the things that haven't yet been vetted are the additional employee requests.
Okay,
So this is kind of what basically Lori and Mark do with their department heads as they go through all of these processes. What, Matt Mulder had suggested is, hey, let's throw out kind of where the priorities are and what you guys think. And then we're going to come back at the next meeting, correct?
Yep, and we'll put them all together, and then we'll start seeing where things fit, don't fit. If you want this, we gotta move this or do this type of a thing, but
Great.
it'll put us in a really good spot when we go into the whole budget process later this year.
I still reserve the right to object to anything during the regular budget process.
right.
We'll all reserve that right.
Oh, okay, just wanted to make that clear.
But it isn't like we go through and we do all the numbers and have them great, and we walk in here and
Oh, yeah,
you
I
say,
get it, I
hey,
just trying to.
we want this, we want Concord Road done this year.
Yeah,
right?
well, what we do.
No, no.
Yeah.
no,
next
That's why I
year,
threw it out.
So Concord
No.
Road should be in
Yeah,
the budget
no,
for
that's
24.
why I used
Yeah.
that as the example,
Yeah,
because I
yeah,
know that
yeah,
that's
yeah.
going to be there.
Okay.
Okay.
Well,
No,
let's start off. Joe, do you want to come up and
No.
you want to do it a
If you
different
go in
way?
order, we'll.
Okay, go in
City
order.
clerk?
Clerk was first, that's right. We go in the order we did it last time, that makes sense.
Dan's not here, but
Not here, so
Can you
she'll, she said she'll respond next time.
Yeah.
And then
So, the city clerk's big thing was, looking at the additional scanner machines and then also Badger books.
Yep.
So, still getting some information on that, but, we'll be back, but, those two items I would, plan on seeing in the budget.
Doesn't mean that we pass them or because we don't know enough details, but they're in there as a possibility. So just to kind of go around the horn, does anybody have questions on the clerks that either Mark or Tina can answer?
Clerks was one of the things I kind of had on my list. I actually do think that we need probably some additional clerk work. My big question on the clerk staffing, because I think what was, I think a good argument was, we're growing, we've got these elections, none of that seems to be slowing down. But I don't know if we need another full-time. It seems like we have 3 full-time and 1 part-time. And conceptually in my head, it seems like a good position with elections that come and go with timing, that instead of adding another full-time with all the additional health benefits and all that, we just simply try to get another part-time, another, 20 hours a week person. Those two part-times then equal the full-time, and trying to see how that works. I think that makes sense. I think that gives them the help they need without creating that additional healthcare cost, which, I mean, the healthcare is the one thing that we can't control really. Once they're full-time, those health benefits just, health goes up, health insurance goes up 15%, we're stuck. We can't do anything.
Jennifer?
And
So kind of going on what Matt said, if the clerk's office believe that they need another full-time person to avoid the extra cost of healthcare, what about 2 part-time?
Well, however they've got, however they do that.
Yeah, and that's one of the things when I said that, we haven't vetted that through, that those would be questions that we'd be asking and expecting information to come from the clerk's office for that. It is one of the notes that I'd written down.
Good.
Well, on that note, I think I'd support the rent over the purchase of additional election machines, just understanding the continuing maintenance and investment that's gonna go beyond the initial capital cost. That's my only feedback there.
A lot of uncertainty there, too.
Yeah.
Good point. Anything else? Who's up next, Mark?
Economic development.
Mr. Duffy, you want to come up to the podium, sir? So Bob presented everything 2 weeks ago. Just open up discussions, fire questions to Bob. Jazz, you can go ahead. We don't have to raise hands for this.
So
This is-
what is our general fund right now for the tourism fund? What is our tourism fund at right now, the balance?
The reserve fund is
Yeah,
about
the reserve fund.
$300,000.
Okay,
305, I think.
and
She has better access.
what do we take in generally in revenue each year in the tourism fund?
400, probably 480.
Okay. And how much do you think the new position would cost, the city communications and marketing position, like all in, all
And
together?
as I said a couple weeks ago, it
Yeah.
was, what I'm asking for is, if it's something you're interested in, I would work with HR, Carlson Detman, do the survey. Then we'd be using their services to define that parameter. So I don't have an estimate, because we have Carlson Detman who does that for us, does a survey, and Tony can talk to this, does a survey, description of the position, surveys the market, and then puts that together.
Yeah, well, I guess I am interested in finding a way to use the money that we're, currently collecting instead of letting it sit there. I think there is some value in the position. I don't necessarily know if it should be a full-time, position.
That's a
Because
good
I did-
question. What do we get out of the intern for time-wise? Because they're only here during school year, not school year?
And
Is it
our
full-time?
first, our first one was 32 hours a week for a year. Second one was probably 36 to 38 hours a week.
Here's my thing is, my
Don't pay
concern
them
too,
holidays and-
I want to make sure, I guess, that, because even understanding we have the large reserve, we should operationally be taking in the revenue we need each year to support that position as well. And if we're not doing that, even knowing we have this big surplus, it doesn't make sense for me to add it. But I would like to see some more innovative and creative ideas how to use this and maybe one-time spending, the 305, and using that to really promote initiatives in the community, because it doesn't make sense for us to keep sitting there with it. Are we legally using as much of it as we can right now in our revenue to pay your salary? I mean, I know we pay part of your salary from it. It goes from other departments as well.
Tourism, general fund.
Is there a
and
ratio where it can
TIF
be?
districts, I believe, is what I am. I don't
Yeah.
know the percentage. 40, 40, 20, I think, but I'm
I
guessing.
mean, is that the legal split that we have to stay at right now too?
No.
I mean, is there a way we could be spending more of, what we take in each year to make sure,
Right.
because that could save maybe other departments. Maybe there's a other department that we could be spending less, each year on his salary on, so.
Part of the
tourism fund.
reason we have a somewhat of a surplus is, if you recall, when COVID hit, we spent less. We anticipated that the council would have to support. We actually I think we had to support half of what they needed. And then the other, 2021, we imagined we were gonna do the same thing. We didn't, the general fund did not have to support tourism, and the room tax, bounced back up. So we didn't spend as much, we didn't need the reserve, and then we raised the room tax probably in 2020, so. And again, we had a meeting the other day, we proposed a grant program to help organizations or entities to be able to use some of those funds for special projects, events, those types of things. We could look at other initiatives as well.
Yeah, that we can spend
able
on
to
the
invest
city
that.
for
Absolutely.
ourselves, not necessarily, in grants,
Challenge,
but.
I think the challenge that communities have got themselves into with using accommodations tax for things not for putting heads in beds, is the lodging establishments challenging them and saying, why did you use it for this? That's for the community benefit, not for visitors.
Well, and I'm thinking in
and
tourism.
I'm-
If we're trying to attract tourism, that means we're trying to put heads in beds at the end of the day, right? Can't you get to that point? So,
The law did change in 2017. Most of your streetscape, most of your things that happened in downtown were paid for by tourism. Then the law changed.
Okay, so another important question there then would be, really is the difference between the 480 and, let's say the revenue is 480 on the room tax-ish. How much are we actually spending? What are we putting in? Or what do we anticipate putting in this next year? Because we now have another hotel up full-time, putting in the room tax. My understanding is the 4 places that generate room tax in the city are pretty full a lot. And that there's interest in additional hotels even coming out here. So out of that 480, what are we anticipating dropping into that reserve this year? I think that's the actual
yeah, well,
crux
that
of
and
the
how much you
question.
spend out of it as
Because
well right now.
if it's 100, if it's 50, if it's 80, then we should be, if we're gonna really do this marketing intern, which I'm still not convinced we actually 100% need. It's just like anything, once you start down the road of creating a position, it's impossible to ever get rid of the position. When that position was created, it was free for a year, and now we're talking about a full-time with benefits position that's gonna cost the city $100,000 a year. And we're gonna use room taxes for it or whatever. So we should be very careful about what we do with those positions. So it is what it is.
I would be in support of the full-time marketing assistant position, provided, I think it would be helpful for us. I know that you said this person would be doing all of the things that the intern did, and even some things that we still don't do in-house, that we pay outside services for. So I think that would be helpful too, to see how economically beneficial that would be for us to bring that full-time person on.
And again, it's not just marketing, it's also communications for the city.
Correct.
They've done a bunch of things for the
Correct.
police department, park and rec,
Well, okay,
different utilities, so.
and I'm not trying to be contrarian to that point, and that's fine. But if we have a marketing intern that's been working out and we're paying, what are we paying them, 14, 15 an hour or something? So what, 35 grand a year-ish? If that's been working out and that's been a good program, why change it? Like if we're getting a full-time, basically 38 hours a week person for half the price or a third of the price without benefits, why change, I guess?
We're retraining talent each time.
Yes, yeah.
And the time frame is getting shorter.
Well, but
The
we're
last one
also,
was
yeah,
here 9 months. There's nothing we can require them to stay for a year.
Agreed.
Well, right, but we're also doing a service to these kids coming out of school at those degrees, to give them a job,
Yeah.
to give them essentially a full-time job doing something that you otherwise might not get that job. I mean, we hire a full-time person, those kids coming out of school that want an opportunity like that, but that opportunity is now gone from our community forever.
And I understand what you're saying, but there is a learning curve every time we bring another person on board, and there's a cost involved in training that person. There's a cost involved in his time and several other people's time. I'm just throwing it out there. Plus, this person would be, like I said, doing a lot of things that we still aren't doing in-house. So
make it a
just some
part-time-
things to consider.
part-time then,
I'm
not
just
an
saying some things to
internship.
consider.
As we're
When
talking
I
about staff,
think-
though, we have to talk about the really, again, we come back to this every budget cycle, actual core functions. So I don't think DPW has hired a new person for 30 years, and they're plowing more streets, repairing more roads, repairing more stuff. We hadn't, prior to the last couple of years, hired a lot of new police officers. I'm not saying now is the time to hire more. We've done a lot of hiring. But prior to a few years ago, we hadn't hired a new police officer since like 81 or something. So I mean, when we talk about a marketing and communications person, I think we need to make sure that our clerks can run elections efficiently and that
It's
our
not the
roads.
same pot of money though, right?
Yeah,
That's
that's
the
what I was
Well,
gonna
that is
say,
true.
like,
There's-
Yeah, that's why you gotta.
But if we can move more of his money into that fund, that should
Right,
be a
I
bigger
agree,
priority.
yeah, I agree.
But just like with utilities, like we were talking with
Fair.
a $30 million building, we can do it there. We can't do it on our side
Right.
here. It's
If we can
free,
do
it's
it.
free to the, you know, to the,
Bob,
So I
do you
would
have any
different other-
questions for the council that'll help you in preparation for your budget?
All I'm
From
looking
what
for
you're
is a
hearing.
green light or a red light for me to work with Tony to at least get an idea of what it's truly gonna cost for the budget.
yeah, I'll tell you
Because
what
as
it's
we
gonna
work
cost.
through this in June, July, whenever my budget's due, I
So
don't
what
wanna
I'm-
surprise
what
you
I'm-
with that,
I have
and then
another-
you come to me and say,
Okay.
well, who said you were to go forward and
Yeah.
spend
Yeah,
some
get the
Carlson
price.
Detman's time?
But
to do
I'd like to
this?
see a price for not only a full-time option, though. I mean, is there a part-time option as well? I mean, because we're talking about the internship
get an
right now.
intern.
Well, why would you have because if you have the part-time, you're eliminating that turnover that we're talking about
Yeah, that's
in terms of the internship
So
program.
I think what we're hearing is that Bob would like to see some different options
that's all
and then
I'm
have them
asking
kind
for.
of spelled out. And I think, Matt, you had another comment?
Yeah, well, different, priority two, the East Wisconsin redevelopment master plan. I've questioned this and I was, driving in that area because there's nowhere to walk in that area. And I guess that maybe this is probably a conversation you and I have later, but I don't understand it. I don't understand what we hope to get out of that. To me, it's a railroad tracks and some old buildings that, and a resin factory. Like, I don't know what the redevelopment necessarily looks like that, but it doesn't feel like a priority to me if there's gonna be tax dollars going towards it. I don't know what,
Most of it is reserve CDA funds. I believe we have $30,000 of reserve CDA funds. Normally, we get to budget, I put $10,000 to be able to propose potential redevelopment in that. Again, part of my role is to look 5, 7, 10 years out. You know, downtown took 20 years to redevelop. Olympia's gonna take 10, 12, 15 years to redevelop.
well, I'll be
At
on,
some point,
I'll be
at
on
some-
council, so I like that
No.
timeframe.
But part of the role is to set the stage for this community not to get to where downtown was 20 years after I left.
We have a redevelopment planned around Olympia before that stuff started really taking off. Didn't we have something
We
drafted?
had a Southwest Summit Avenue area neighborhood plan.
Trying to give a roadmap and
My-
ideas,
I
that's
guess,
all.
yeah,
And
my only comment
ideas
was
to
I don't-
property owners
I don't
and
see that as
ideas
a
to
priority
developers. Those are
in
the
my-
people we got to put together. Property owners and developers, what the potential is for that.
But none of it's binding.
Correct.
All right, that's my point.
Other questions for Bob?
I have a question. So going back to the marketing position, apparently I'm on this like kick about 2 part-time people today. But, and you don't have to answer this, but like what would your thoughts be on 2 part-timers, one being like a permanent part-time person and then still having the internship program? And like I said, you don't
Again,
have to answer that right now, but you know,
We'd have
just
to
something to
figure out
think
how
about
that
because I,
Logistically would work, space-wise, tools-wise. all
yeah,
of
no,
that.
that's a good point. I do see where Karen's coming from, that, you know, every 9 months to 12 months, you have to train somebody. That's a lot of time. And it's kind of a waste of time. But then on the flip side of it, I do think it's a really good service that we offer to kids coming out to come work. So if we could maybe kind of find a compromise in the middle.
I will say this comment generally, and this is not directed at anyone specifically, but I think it's, when the marketing intern was proposed 3 or 4 years ago, it was like, this is the greatest thing since sliced bread. Now we're being told, oh God, it's so hard to retrain this person. Now we need to go full-time. And it's so much extra work to retrain them. So I hate getting down that rabbit hole, and then the rabbit hole just keeps going deeper and deeper.
Yeah, but in their defense, don't you think that when they were first given that position, it was the greatest thing since sliced bread? But then when they realized every year they had to retrain them, then they went, wait a minute, what did we get into?
And again, in all
Must
honesty,
be bringing value.
there's
'cause
new
we keep doing
tools,
it.
there's new technology. I can tell you, I'm not part of that world at all. So,
So, obviously for the position, we gotta do some research and bring back numbers, and we will have Bob do that.
Got it.
Next up?
Finance and IT.
Thanks, Bob.
Thanks, Bob.
Thank you, Mr. Duffy.
No question on the IT, but I just think it's generally kind of disappointing that we purchased a system in 2017 that's now bankrupt and obsolete. And I think it's kind of an example of, hopefully we're we're putting teams together when we're procuring these systems, that we're, doing as much due diligence as we can, because this has happened with other IT systems and other departments, and so it's disappointing to see something like this happening again.
But I don't think we had any control over that.
It was decided on before I started working here, so I wasn't part of that, but I do know that, technology has been changing a lot
I
since
mean, I don't think anybody
2017
had a
as
crystal
well.
ball to see that coming, but sadly, it happened.
So is,
But yeah.
is a Avaya phone system the only phone system that's gone bankrupt since 2017?
I don't know.
So we did talk about, though, fixing that now, right, and not waiting?
Yeah,
Is that
yeah,
we were
so-
gonna get
Yeah.
numbers and figure that out.
We're going to, basically what we're going to do is we're going to be getting proposals from several different companies. We are checking with other communities in the area and throughout the state to see, what they are using or what they're switching to when they're coming off of these IP phone lines, so.
Make sure you ask them if they plan on filing bankruptcy in 5
I
years.
know,
You think they'll tell you?
I mean, we can play it smart and expensive and stick with, and try to get something from AT&T, I guess. I think they'll be around for a
Well,
long
that's, I
time.
mean, that's like, I think some of this can be avoided through due diligence in terms of the companies that we're picking, so take it what you will.
So, I mean, when they bought the system back in 2017, or they bought it in 16 and installed it in 17, I mean, the life cycle on it was 8 years, so we're pretty close.
The IT support position's probably the big request in there. I don't know that it's not needed. I'm just curious, are the two people working right now just like completely jammed with work on doing all this?
Right, and every department is getting new technology all the time, or changing technology. It's, I mean, the police department alone is just, and the utilities.
Yeah,
You
that
know,
was the
with
thing
the
you said,
amount-
police and utilities, that seems to be where they're
That's the
trying to fill the
biggest
gap
ones,
with
yeah.
that. That's the heaviest
That's the
load.
heaviest
Okay.
loads that we've got, yeah.
Is there, we have this is one of my notes later on for police, I want to get a little bit better handle on where our staff is compared to, officer per staff, and is there a way that we can kind of get some assistance? Like, we've got some clerks and we've got staff at the police department that are there, 24/7 right now. We have a 24/7 staffed. Is there assistance there? I mean, is there time, do those people have time to do some of that support functions? Is that even possible? I don't know.
Yeah, well, I guess it would depend on what it is, working with, I don't know, I guess we'd have to talk about that.
Okay.
I
mean,
think that would
anything
be like me
network-wise,
writing
no.
a legal contract. It wouldn't go well. Unless you have hired those specific type people, I don't think that they would have those skill sets. But if there's a way to utilize it, chief, if you can look into that, with IT, that would be great.
He's smiling, he knows where I'm going with this.
Any other questions for Lori?
Is there, so all of the IT is located here, the new person would be located in this building, or would be located on site at the police department? Do you have a?
I don't know yet.
I was
And-
wondering, bigger picture, does it make sense to have our IT located here, or is there room at the PD, since there's already fiber back and forth between the buildings, is there a more modern space there that we could house all of IT, get it out of the side rooms of our council chambers? Probably
mean-
expense along with that, but if there's a reason to do that.
You're looking doubtful on that.
Oh, no, I wasn't even listening, so.
It's certainly something we can look at.
Just an
Yeah.
idea I had as I look at these and.
And
nameplates.
Kevin, yeah, just jump in, Kevin.
Oh, okay.
They don't
So-
spend a lot of time in there.
Yeah, but,
So my question is, I've been driving around lately and I'm noticing a lot more dead spots, right out here and then over on Second. Is there anything we can do about that at all? I mean,
No, the
I've
city doesn't
actually-
have anything to do with that.
Have nothing to do with that whatsoever?
Communications, that's nothing to do with it.
Okay, so
Yeah.
that's,
That's not city, yeah.
okay, thank you.
It would maybe be helpful for me, or for any of us, to see, like, another community our size and with similar dynamics to our community. Are they finding this as well. We need to grow our IT positions, you know? I think that's helpful. We're always kind of looking at other communities and seeing
Yeah,
what
we
they're
can,
doing.
we'll pull all the information together, but, yeah, I mean, everybody's got IT departments now. Most of them aren't run out of finance anymore. You know, it's just
it
that
already,
everything is
okay.
technology now.
Yep.
And so, yeah, if we want to keep everybody up and running all the time, we've got to have the support people to keep them up and running.
Not many municipal electrics out there.
No, but that's true. That's true, too.
Yeah. Other thoughts or questions? Yeah, go ahead.
So what I noted, what I've noticed is that it seems as though we're beginning the process of going away from paper. What are your thoughts and what is your goal for us as council? Because you have been educating us, and you see I'm starting to bring mine in now.
That's really good.
To, at some point in time.
Basically, we're looking at making everyone more efficient, you know? For the staff here that puts together paper packets, and for you as well, to be able to have what you need. We're looking at, you'll get to see in a couple of weeks, a little bit more about the transparency sites that we have, the information that you can get from us without having to come in or request things on paper. So, I mean, it's the way of the world we're trying to jump on. But it does help staff become more efficient here as well.
How many hours does it take a week? You probably don't know, for them to.
Yeah, I don't know. We sort of looked at it a little bit, but, you know, we can look at it again if that's what we want to do.
The other reason
But,
why I say that is because, first off, when I look at this, you've got ink, you've got a lot of things that we're
You know,
paying
when-
for right now.
Yeah,
And if
when
we
I did
go-
just a
And if we
fast-
go onto just the computer, then that kind of cost goes away.
Yeah,
So that's why I'm asking that question.
it was
$6,000.
$8,000 a year when I did the fast and quick, here's what it is, without, doing an in-depth report. But just going through hours and paper and copiers and, what the copy machine costs us to use per sheet and all that. We threw something together, came up with $2,000 a quarter, and just extrapolated that into $8,000 a year, which is more than we spend on the rec newsletters and, some of those kind of things. That's, we're looking at getting rid of those sort of things so that they can be digital or, people can get them online. And, we see more and more people doing it with us as well, where they don't send us paper bills anymore. We get email invoices and statements and, or download it. It's just the way it is. So we're trying to keep up with everybody and try to make all the offices and the council more efficient.
I have one final question, and then I'll keep my mouth shut. Can we request that we don't get the Thursday night drop by the police, and that we just
That
get
you're
it?
using your computer?
Right.
Yeah, well, I'm hoping in a couple of months that we just won't be doing that anymore, if we can get this
So if you want to
on
make
board,
that
moving up.
request, you can make it at any point in time. It's up to you.
Yep.
I haven't gotten paper for 3 months.
One of the big things that you still will get paper-wise is if those big plan sets come
Yeah,
in,
yeah.
because the developers are bringing those to us. So you would still get those kind of things, but just the regular agenda packet materials, you should be able to get on your laptops that some of you have. The other ones are here. You just need to make an appointment with Ivan to get your password stuff set up, and then you'll be up and running.
But if we want to keep paper, we'll be able to do that, of course.
It's just, you get a good printer at your house, you will.
Yes.
Or you
I'm
can,
not going to kill the paper industry in a state that supports paper heavily, so I'll keep supporting the paper industry in Wisconsin.
Good printer for all those pages.
I'm not doing it.
a couple of them were 300-400 pages, yeah.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Larry.
Human Resources. I think Tony proclaimed that he wasn't costing us any money last time, so we'll-
Exactly, so I didn't even know why I'm here.
You may sit down. No, just kidding. Questions for council?
Why do all of our people keep quitting on us?
because they get old.
Retiring.
We hire experienced people, so that shortens the timeline a little bit, so.
Any other department heads want to retire or move to Brookfield?
Let's replace the three we have on the board now.
Tony, I do have one, the two softwares, the applicant tracking and the performance management software. Did you say there was no budget impacts on these?
I'm going to try to stay within budget
Okay.
on that. So,
There's just a through line through a lot of these of, new software upgrades and software additionals and new management stuff. Everybody almost has something in their request regarding that. So I think we just have to be cognizant of the ones that we actually truly need and ones that maybe, we can phase some of these things in.
correct, those are tools that we definitely
You definitely,
need,
okay.
for sure.
And along those lines too, I would assume, Tony, that that additional software change will not have a drain on our IT labor force?
No, I don't believe so, no.
Okay, because that's something you need to think about, because some softwares create more need,
Right.
but yours does not.
No, it does not.
Okay.
It's all in the cloud.
Thank you. Okay,
Library?
thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me.
Do we have any questions on library?
A couple, really just a couple thoughts, not so much questions. So it sounds like we raised about $25,000 at the,
I believe it's just 1 or 2,000 over, but
Okay.
yes,
All right, so-
25,000 was raised at the Bookbinders Ball on May 6th. Thank you to everyone here and not here who supported and made that happen.
Was that net of expenses?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Just making sure.
so I think that's great. I think it shows some good community support. My recommendation, this maybe isn't even part of the budget, but my recommendation is that we don't do the study for at least 12 months after a new director starts. I think it just is, we need that person to establish their priorities, the questions, the approach they might take in that could be very different. I don't think within the first 12 months they know enough. If we want to localize library services, we need a director who understands the priorities they have, and the staff and the space and even what we currently have going on here. So I don't know that is going to be in a budget anyway, but that's just a recommendation I want to
Okay.
make. Because I think there's opportunities to do some things that, might be more progressive than we were thinking, or maybe that Betsy was thinking, where we have a very large community footprint. There's a move towards unstaffed, what are called open libraries. I'm sure you've heard of that, where we could take a storefront at Paps Farms and one at Piggly Wiggly and have a small open library that doesn't require any staffing. And it could be a way around a constant increase in personnel
That's cool.
costs. So
Really?
just lots of different options, and I just want a new director with a new vision to come in and look at all of those things. So, and then someone made the comment last time that hours should be prioritized over adult programming. I don't know who said that. Was that? I think that's absolutely true. Before we should cut programs before we give access to everybody to all the materials. Somebody not going to a talk on birds, which I would enjoy, somebody should be able to come and do their homework before that. So as we think about the budget constraints we'll no doubt have on every department as costs go up, I just think it's really important to keep the library open.
Very good. Those really excellent comments. I completely agree. I think we didn't actually raise enough for the 30. 25 is a good start for sure. I mean, that's the biggest fundraiser probably the library's done for 20 years, give or take. So good start. But I agree. I think you want that library director to get prioritized and figure out what he or she wants. And, maybe 6-8 months in, they're like, hey, here's my vision, here's what I want to do, and we can reprioritize that or add that in. But I agree, it's something that should wait for somebody to get a good vision and really engage with council and the community, because, if it's a $3 million expansion, that we don't have that money in our budget. So there's going to have to be significant community buy-in. It's going to have to be something that everyone kind of really can get behind.
Yeah,
and
and if I
Yeah.
can interrupt you, I think that's a great point, because now that we're not funding the study, it's out of our hands, right?
True.
I mean, the library is the one department we don't really oversee, so I think that really having close connection between the director as they come in and want to make some of these changes and us who eventually have to potentially fund them is going to be critical. So, we can have those conversations. We have a new director, but I think that's a really great perspective to have.
Other comments on the library?
I just wanted to add one thing. You had mentioned last time about the self-checkout, and you
Yes.
said that that's not typically going to result, well, you said, it says, I'm just looking right here, it's, you wouldn't need to, you would reduce circulation staff if you did have the self-checkout, is that correct?
So this past year, we got 2 self-checkouts. We have one in our kids' area, one much closer to the exit. And right now, we see a balance of behaviors. We see some people always going to the self-checkouts, especially story time mornings. It is a ritual for the little kids to check out their own things. But there's preference on both sides, to both the convenience and the privacy of self-checkout. But some people absolutely need to come to the desk. First of all, we don't have the space for self-serve holds. And when I say that, what I mean by it is for people who place holds on items. Some libraries have a footprint where they have public accessible shelving where they can, there's, like some kind of code that denotes that it's for them because we do want to respect privacy, but they're able to grab their own holds and check those out. And just with our space right now, that's not possible. So if someone has a hold, they would need to go to the desk. Additionally, just yesterday, I was showing a patron how to use the self-checkout, and she wanted to check out one of our special library of things, which requires going to the desk because we just have a DVD case out on the floor that they then bring to the desk. So there are certain circumstances where people do come to the desk.
Yeah, I'm just trying to find a balance between, well, just between the self-checkout versus the staffing issue. Trying to find a balance between that, is it more practical to have, the self-checkout, before we look at staffing? I think that was brought up last time, as far as like self-checkout. Matt had brought that up and, how that balances out. So I'm just trying to get the whole perspective on that, before we hire more if we don't need to.
Yeah. And the additional part-time staffing request that I had mentioned 2 weeks ago was not so much about our circulation staff at the checkout desk, but our part-time reference staff, rearranging, adding some more hours to make the positions more, I'm blanking on a word that I'm looking for. But having those people fill those positions for longer by, first of all, providing them more hours, but also helping us with youth services programming. Right now, our library has 1.5 staff working in youth services, and that is rather unusual for a community of our size. And so those additional hours that I had mentioned would help the youth services staff.
Makes sense, different perspective on it, yeah.
So Jenny, I have a
Yes.
question. Oh, sorry. No, you can finish.
Oh, no.
I was interrupting you. How many hours a week, I know we kind of talked about this last year with the budget.
Okay.
About how many hours a week do you spend within some of our like for-profit senior homes like Tower Crest and Shore Haven?
So I'm our special services coordinator and I provide outreach. I visit 7 facilities on a monthly basis. So, and I do that on Mondays. So I'm usually out of the building most Mondays. So I'm at 7 a month. My visit there is scheduled as an hour, but there's some setup time, some cleanup time. Sometimes I have someone who comes in the last 5 minutes and, has a question with their phone or their tablet. So, if I have time to stay a little bit later, I will. So I don't have those direct hours in front of me, but it is 3 Mondays out of the month. I spend the majority of my day at these
Then
locations.
how much time do you spend maybe the rest of the week preparing for what you're bringing them?
I do that Monday mornings.
Oh, you do it before you go?
Yeah, I come in a little bit early, gather everything, and I take phone calls and emails throughout the month. Sometimes people request things right while I'm there for the next time. Sometimes they call, so I might be fielding calls and placing holds throughout the month before my next visit to that location.
I remember Alderman Rosick brought this up last year, and it just really made me think about, some of these places that are, they are for-profit. They should be maybe providing the service to their residents, not us providing it. And then that would free you up, to help out in other areas within the library.
It's 40 days a year of your time, 36 days of your time a year spent
About
doing that.
15% of our working hours.
Yeah. So when you talk about adding part-time staff, or you talk about those things, that's, yeah, I don't know how you go, there's two ways you go about that, right? I mean, you either stop providing the service to them, or you tell them you need to help out. You either need to, we'll set up a day where you can bring a shuttle to the library and we'll help do it here in the conference room, or we'll effectuate that, those are some of the things we have to look at. I think those are all good questions, and I agree with Chaz on the hours should be prioritized. One of my big things last year I talked about during the budget cycle, and we talked about it at length, and I think there needs to be some more focus on how we get there, is we do still fund the library higher than our other surrounding communities, without getting into the weeds on all that. And I've talked to the Gallup Bridges quite a bit about this, and hopefully there's going to be some additional political push to change some of the way that we get funding from some of the other communities. But last year it was around 210,000 more that we spend on our library than the neighboring communities. So essentially we're subsidizing, Ixonia, Dousman, and the town of Oconomowoc, and other people that come to our libraries because they're paying less per dollar than we are to rent a book. And that doesn't take into account, the original buy of the library and all that. I don't even want to think about that. But what I'd like to see in the next budget cycle from the library is what that number is and what we're doing to try to at least incrementally get that number down to what it is. Whether that's by getting these other communities to donate more, or us creating more efficiencies in our own staffing or our own, programs. Because in addition to the renting the books, which is, we only get paid for them when they rent the books, essentially, take the books out. They pay nothing for the program. So for every program we do, our community is essentially completely funding other people from these other areas to come in and use our programs for free. So we have to bring that into our focus when we're talking about that library budget, and really try to needle down on what that number is. And maybe that's charging for some of these programs for people that are not in the city of I don't know if, I don't know if,
Actually not legal.
okay, well, yes, so that's what I don't know. I
Yeah.
don't know what we can do to try to,
Okay.
do we go to those communities and say, look, we're gonna start cutting some of these programs if we don't get a little help. And so last year, again, that was 210, I think with the budget reduction, I think we pulled that down a little bit, but I just think it needs to be discussed in the budget cycle, and we need to have that number in front of us and what you're doing to try to reduce that, or, whoever the director is. Is it 175 this year? We cut that about 25, or we cut 15, and try to equalize ourselves with the people around here that are using our library.
I'm not disagreeing with your concept, but we're, as part of the Bridges system, I don't think we control any of that, Matt. That's all part of the agreement we have as part of the system, isn't it, Jenny?
Alderman Rozak is discussing TNR, the true non-resident. So residents who live in communities that do not have libraries, like Ixonia, Summit, we're surrounded by quite a few of those. They are, when they use Oconomowoc library services, such as, and the real number that, that is used is our circulation.
Right.
They are, their communities reimburse us for that. And the TNR residents are taxed at a flat rate. And the city has traditionally taxed its residents at a higher rate. And I do not have those
Right.
numbers.
I don't want those numbers now.
Okay.
I just generally like conceptualize that as we go into the budget cycle, because it's going to be a point for me again, trying to equalize that somehow, whether that's, for instance, I know we have one more full-time employee than we're required to by the Bridges system. So I'm not saying we cut a full-time employee, I'm just, what can we do, if we have too many programs and the TNR people are using all the programs and we're expending X amount on the programs, what can we do to reduce some of that? So that's just, just conceptualize
The
it.
question though, isn't the true question though, what are other communities that have these TNRs surrounding them actually spending per person, as opposed to comparing us to other areas that don't have their own library? I mean, you're saying our rate is higher than Ixonia, but
What they
Ixonia
pay in
doesn't
the
have a
formula.
library. I'm saying, what are
Right.
we compared to Waukesha or Pewaukee? I mean, I think that would be more of an
Well, that could be,
apples-to-apples
that could be a factor for
comparison.
sure. Yeah, that could be something we should look at as part of that.
And Oconomowoc is surrounded by quite a few TNR residents. Our service population is, I think, 27 or 28,000. But when you look east of us, New Berlin, Menominee Falls, a lot of those bigger communities, it's one library community after, they're all sharing borders with each other, so they just don't have the rate of TNR
That's the big,
residents
that's the TNR issue.
that
Yeah, okay.
Oconomowoc has.
So if you think about that, our population's 18,000, so 40% of our library service area is non-resident.
Which is how, when that number works out, what they pay for the circulation, then we're essentially subsidizing these other communities. And I want to conceptualize that so people understand, when we talk about minutia budget cuts or something, that's part of what's going on too. We're essentially subsidizing it for people that don't live here.
I guess I would want to know what are we legally obligated to, and what are
Correct.
our
I think that's
options, or
important.
is it- or are we
I
just
believe,
handed
I
this?
believe the TNR rate is the minimal rate of taxation.
Those other
I
communities
kinda-
only pay the minimums too, by the way. They only pay the
Can we
minimums.
compel them to pay more?
No.
Yeah, I do not
But
believe
I
that.
think what we're hearing is that we definitely want more due diligence on that, so when we come to the operating budget, we have a lot of those metrics so that they
Okay.
can evaluate them.
So my question to you is this. You understand pretty much what council is looking to do, but I don't think anybody's ever asked you, what is your vision? What do you see the library doing as far as the checking out, as far as staffing, as far as the hours open and the materials? What is your vision?
I would say that my vision for the library is to be a community center in Oconomowoc, an equalizer. It doesn't matter who you are, you can use the library. And so that's why we have resources for people to either use in-house or check out. That's why we have programs, we have learning for all ages. And so it is a place to learn, it is a place for community, and it enriches this community. Does that answer your question? Or-
Well, yes, it
Okay.
does. And I want to make sure we're all in one accord. I want to make sure that we have an understanding of what your goals are. I think one of the things that happens is we look at the numbers and we say, okay, we don't like this, so we want to cut this, we want to cut that, we want to cut this, we want to cut that. But we never give you the respect of saying, what is your vision? And once we can understand that, once I can understand that, it kind of makes my job a little easier,
Okay,
because now I can communicate with you in a sense of, okay, I know you want this, but it doesn't make sense in this respect. Okay, instead of kind of being the dictator in a sense, okay? So I appreciate your answer, thank you.
okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.
Former Director of Parks.
Formerly known as.
Artist formerly known as.
Artist formerly known as Craig.
That was bad.
Well, once Joe announced, I could not see living without him.
You notice there wasn't a mass exodus, though. Craig.
Craig, I had one, there's a sloppy soil materials walled enclosure. Isn't that the same thing that Joe's gonna have?
Yes.
Okay.
So we,
all right.
there's a theme, I think, between utilities, DPW, parks. A lot of our things are similar, so that's the spoils containment.
Okay.
Cold storage, the fencing security, even the northeast, moving the Ball Diamond Complex from Champion also ties into that, so. And the dog park, which we'll be talking about later tonight. So there's a lot of things that overlap, and we just want to make, it's obviously important to the staff, we see the vision for that, but we just want to make sure it's communicated that way.
I had one thing, I wanted to talk about Northeast Regional as far as the 5-O's baseball organization, getting games up there. Right now, they're at Genesee Lake Road, and they're trying to get a slot for each of their teams. I think they have 15 baseball teams, they have 8 to 10 girls softball teams, and we're trying to get them slots up there at Northeast, because they're under the lights. They don't have lights out at Genesee, so.
We don't have anything at Northeast.
Oh, we don't even have field.
Well,
teams.
I'm just trying to get them more options, maybe not even that, but just places in the city, you know, where we can put
Right, so we've
five-Os.
been working with them for the last 3 years at Champion. So we obviously have the adult program there, Monday through Thursday, 2 fields. They use generally now field number 3. There are not lights there, but they at least get that use for that and weekends. So I have been working with them over the last year, the youth 5-Os and the softball association, to look at Northeast as a potential. So by no means are we there. And I do want to invite people at the next board meeting, which you'll be at, I hope, and Kevin, and others. It will be at Northeast Regional Park itself, so that's June 12th. And we have MSA helping us with cost estimates on that. So it's, MSI has done some good renderings for this and what it could look like, but MSA is going to help us with cost estimates. And then we're going to tour the property, pickleball, the new restrooms, which the walls are actually going up today, and then that as well.
It was more than.
Chief,
Mister,
there's someone at the doors. Thank you.
Sergeant at Arms.
So,
So that's going to be
Yeah,
discussed.
I was just gonna
but-
say also the lights, you know, I understand Northeast that is, but just other options in the city. I know they're gonna lose Champion probably, most likely, you know, because as we move forward with that.
So if
but-
they lose Champion, it'll be a gain for them and others at Northeast, if that's the location.
Yeah, I mean, they're really, I mean, Northeast aside, what they're really trying to do is get lights. Get their teams under lights. However we can do that, you know, around the city somewhere.
The only places we have, unless,
Roosevelt, I mean,
yeah, Roosevelt doesn't have lights.
I mean, somewhere we can.
So
I mean,
Champion is the only one that
It
has
just
lights.
seems a little brighter, you know, than, you know,
And-
out there on Lake Road.
just for clarification, we're not building these these ball diamonds for the 5-Os. I mean, these are community-based ball diamonds. I believe we have an Exonia Knights coach that's one of our department heads sitting in the audience, you know, plus our high school teams, our rec teams. So just, if
I
you could just
understand that.
That's fair.
publicly clarify that
understand that. No,
these
I'm-
are not 5-0 fields.
Correct.
No, no,
Just-
I'm just trying to give them options. I understand
we
that
know.
a lot of other teams use it. I'm just trying to give them options.
but
No, I think
do a
our
lot of other
first-
teams use them. I mean, 5-Os and Oconomowoc softball are going to be 95% of the
Right,
people
the
running
majority,
those
but I mean, it would
bases.
be, I mean.
Exonia Knights have been
Exonia
part of the
Knights too.
discussion. The high school has certainly been offered a
But it's
potential.
not the general public going out on Sunday afternoon with their
Correct.
family playing baseball.
But
It's
could they? I mean, they
baseball.
could, they could.
But they won't. I mean, they could, but I mean, that doesn't happen, so.
Well-
but-
No, that's
I
not
mean,
true, I've
when-
done it.
Well, the pickleball, or the pickleballers wanted facilities. They put up money to do, well, they got it because of private fundraising and involvement from those organizations.
We gave them
So-
the space and they fundraised
So,
for it.
so I'm just saying that, you know, any organization who's really wanting to, you know, see Northeast Regional succeed and have their facilities located there, we'd love to be a partner with you and have you involved in it.
But this, at the end of the day, it's a public park. And Matt, I'm really sad that you grew up in the family you grew up in, because in my family, we'd have family reunions and we'd play baseball.
One time in a year.
I'm not debating that.
Still, it was
in
really, it was a
general-
really fun one day.
In general,
I would say our
majority
main
of the
focus,
use.
just so everybody understands, was the softball association, because they have used Champion the most. And that was really the goal, and moving, anything the city would then duplicate there would be really for the softball association. The 5-Os is kind of the next organization, but yeah, they understand there's a bunch of money it's gonna cost in fundraising and things involved as well. So there's certainly other organizations part of it, but those have been the two main, but again, the Oconomowoc Softball Association being number one. Good
I'd
questions.
like to, I'd like to see us continue to, to put that plan together out there for the regional park. I don't know what kind of investment we're gonna be asked to make on behalf of, like you said, largely the Oconomowoc Softball Association. I think this is correct. We're kind of the last softball association in this area. So the 500 or so people that play in that league, they're from all over the place. So when you talk about funding the library for other people, we're going to be funding so that regionally 500 adults can play softball at a park we paid how many $35,000 an acre for.
100%
So-
agree. I made those comments at the Park and Rec when we had the original discussion about this, is how many of your people are residents of the city and pay taxes in the city? How many people, one of the groups told me, well, like 75–80% of the city residents. I'm like, I don't think that's true. But,
I asked the question.
I completely agree with you. That's the same exact quotient, is what are we building a $3 million park for a bunch of people that live somewhere else, in the town, for instance? I've always thought that Northeast Regional Park was a town park anyway, because it's proximity to the town and not really a city. I mean, it's like right in that little corner.
But there's a few houses going up next spot, nearby, so
There-
it was
there are
definitely a
lot of
city park
houses. There are a
now.
lot of, yeah,
So I-
20% of our constituents live in the neighborhood.
So my question is this, as I said to library, I'll also ask you. I know you're on your way out, but my question is,
It's a long summer, Kevin.
I understand, it's no,
It's a long runway, it's all
well,
good.
that's okay. In the years that you have been here and looking forward, has your vision been accomplished?
Well, I think my vision, that probably echoes a little bit of Jenny, is community. It's really what it's about. So if you look at the projects we've worked on and accomplished and gotten things to a certain point, if you talk about the skate park, the dog park, the splash pad, Rockwell Park, many other things going on, did I say splash pad? Those are all pieces that the communities come forward, and so we want to see this happen. So I wrote down my list. When I started, it's only been 4 years, there was 5 things on the list from the mayor, and not the current mayor. It was Northeast Regional Park, it was Village Green, it was Champion Fields, it was the boat launch, and the skate park. So it's interesting to see, because I can say, yep, those sound great, I'm going to work on those, but then out of the blue comes Rockwell Park, and then the skate park moves up quicker, and then the splash pad jumps in. So you never quite get to that list, and we're working on a lot of it. And now we're looking at Champion, we decided to take a little different approach. So we're crossing off the list, basically, but moving it to another location. So I'm happy where things go, but really my job is not to tell you that this is Craig's ideas, it's really to listen to the community and then work with them. And hopefully you've seen that demonstrated, and I want to continue that throughout the summer as I'm here. And I feel good about some of the timing, like with the splash pad and the boat launch, so we can get them to a certain point, and then the next person can take it and hammer it home, but that's where I really see it. So I see that as my job, is listening to the community, working with them to make things happen. I think the community center we've talked about over and over. We talked about the Park Rec Board. I hope it's something that the community can take pride in, and I think it's great to continue to have the conversations. There's lots of things, there's lots of nuances with the community center. Truly, I've never really was in charge of one before. Not that I run this one either, our staff does, but there's a whole bunch of different things that go with it. And I want our community to take pride in it and say, yeah, this is a great community center. There's some things we can do to tweak it and budgets and whatever, that's great. But I've heard the council and the mayor, and the way we've said it is like, we gotta fix this, we gotta fix that. If, this is not good, this is whatever. I don't think that's the approach we should have. I think we have a great community center, we're doing great things for the community, programs, people that can't necessarily go somewhere else, but we just got to work on how that works budget-wise and otherwise. So hopefully that comes across as well. So thanks for asking.
I have two things to kind of add. I think we have to address the bathrooms. And I know that's not necessarily Park and Rec, but I still think that Oz Plaza's the right place to take a look at that. Hopefully eventually there'll be a Rockwell building. We've heard nothing about that, but hopefully there'll be one and there'll be bathrooms on that end. But we have got to address, I think we probably haven't heard from DOBA because they're probably just realizing they're talking to people that aren't listening in their opinion. But we are, and we have to get bathrooms down there, and we've got $300,000. We could throw more TIF dollars at it. We've got reserve dollars. We need to look at putting bathrooms down at Oz Plaza. I don't think the warming house welcome center idea is a good one, and we shouldn't be waiting to do that. I think the time is now. We should make it a priority that we open bathrooms next spring in Oz Plaza. Or if it's not Oz Plaza, somewhere else. We have to do that. And then Matt, you've brought this up. I think we should be working to eliminate mowing anywhere we can by converting parts of parks to prairies. I live right by Parkview Park, strangest name for a park. It's got to be 4 acres.
Oh, it's bigger than that.
And I've
There's a lot
seen
of mowing.
people throwing baseballs out there, Jennifer, but like 5 times in the 10 years. Like, it's a giant waste of mowing. It's a beautiful little park, but it could be better with some prairies. And there's other ones, the one in your neighborhood, Kevin, is only partially mowed right now. The rest of that could be nice prairie instead of old grass. Northeast Regional could have some great prairies in it. Like, I think there's great ways to,
Lake Ridge Park down by Jennifer is a good one too.
It's actually called Hawthorne Ridge Park.
No, there's another one.
Oh, the
on
one right off of the trail.
Oconomowoc Parkway and the trail.
Yeah,
'Cause
but even
that's
Hawthorne, they mow all of that, and
Ultimately,
it's
somebody's backyard, which
hardly
we
ever
mow,
used.
which shouldn't happen, so.
I'm wondering if you can mow my backyard?
I think they're dropping sludge or something in over
Yeah,
near
you're
you.
getting sludge.
You're getting the sloppy
Sludge
soil
storage.
material.
And I know that Matt and I have talked about this too. I do have, there's a list of a number of city properties that I've shared that the city should look at dissolving or divesting or whatever the word might be.
Like Hawthorne
Not, some of
Ridge
them
Park.
aren't as easy as others, because it's right away and those kind of things, but I think you can work through that. And then there are some park properties that, the Lake Ridge one is a perfect example. Or you convert Hawthorne Ridge to the park there, which might be more accessible to people. So I think there's some things you can look at that way. I agree on the mowing. Parkview Place, I think you should do a couple strips, so there's some space for people to do some things, and then the rest of it you can make more natural.
Well, one of the coolest parks, I think, is Chapman Park, and it's only got the mowed paths, and that's it. And the rest of it's prairie, and it's really pretty to walk through, so.
It's a nice park. That no dogs are allowed.
Dogs are not allowed.
Speaking of restrooms,
it
though,
that
did
way.
you notice the new porta potty? I thought that took care of all the issues.
It's a start.
We do have one in Village Green now, or in the corner of it.
in the corner.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Craig?
Thank you.
Thanks,
Our
Craig.
next up is
Mr. Gallo.
Mr. Gallo with no time limit.
any questions for Jason? He had a lot of good stuff that he brought to us.
I've got a question on the community service study. Can you explain a little bit more as to what that would be for and what we would learn from it?
Sure. I found out about this by attending a conference. There was a consultant there giving their spiel that they did Delafield. I reached out to them following that conference. I said, how much would it cost? They wouldn't tell me how much a Delafield paid, but they said for a community of your size, maybe around $20,000. I said, that's a lot of money. I put in $10,000 last year. It was cut out. This year, I asked 25, thinking prices have gone up. Whenever you do a study, you kind of pay for what you get type thing and how much time that you want to spend. So what you could get out of it would be, more information. It's a toolkit for you guys to use. Delafield got out of theirs. You want to know how much level of service does something support, and they said, well, their home, I think it was like around $430,000, equals out what their cost of their service that their community provides. So if a house comes in valued more than that, they're actually paying for their right to be
So
there.
it would tell us, like, every new development we're bringing in, like, how much that house would have to be valued to support the services it's getting?
Well, not each
or-
new development, just in general, what the cost would be, and then they would look at how much it does industrial cost the city money, or we make money? And they look at how much, they would interview each department and talk about how much does it cost. They would look at our budgets and everything like that. So they'd look at commercial versus industrial versus, and they found out that nonprofits obviously are subsidized by the community.
Well, yeah, I don't need to.
So
$20,000 to know that.
so their recommendation then was that the city of Delafield should enter into some pilot agreements. So they gave them some ideas,
Okay, well, because here's what I thought that originally that we would get out of it was basically, because I think one of the reoccurring themes here is we have all this growth and development, residential primarily, and how is that impacting the schools? How is it impacting our police and fire services? Is there being a greater burden that's being borne because of these additional developments by existing residents because we're having to pay for more services? So you're saying we wouldn't learn any of that from this study, really, and get anything out of it? Because I guess to me, I'm like, well, yeah, no duh, you're subsidizing a nonprofit, and we should have a pilot. I don't need to pay 25 grand for that. It's kind of
Right, I'm probably making it pretty simple fly.
yeah, I don't know. So now I'm a
and-
little, I don't know, I was kind of in favor because I thought we were gonna get some
No,
valuable
it's not
stuff
each
out of it. Now I'm,
development, they don't look at independently. They look at how the city's doing as a whole based on how much residential growth do we have, what's the values of those homes, you know, and then how much do we pay? And, you know, what's good for the city, what's not. So I guess when you're making a decision on land use,
Like it would make us determine whether we want to use that land use for commercial versus residential? or
yeah,
what do you?
yeah,
I-
it's
I
a,
guess-
it's a
Yeah,
tool. And I just thought Oconomowoc a high-growth community.
right.
There's experts out there that examine this, they get down into the nuts and bolts of this. And if it's something that I thought, boy, this is something that my common council really needs to see, this is a good tool to have. But if you're not interested in doing it, it's fine. It's not for my benefit, it's mostly for yours.
I don't think it's that we're not interested. I think we just need some more information on why that would be valuable.
I do know that we could have someone come in and explain it a little bit more than what I'm giving you. You know, if you wanted to schedule something, I could set that up.
Or, yeah, or maybe even a top, you know, here's the top 5 things you're gonna get out of this, or top, 8, huge things that will help you make decisions on. I was kind of, I think I have voted against this before, we pulled something out, I can't remember, yeah.
You 100% voted against.
Yeah, I think it's like any tool, if it's used, it could be great, but, I don't know if we always use these things that we do, so that, like, for instance, I mean, we have land use plans, we have comprehensive land use plans, and then we see a new shiny development, and we just say, oh, sure, or, so, we just throw it out anyway. We create these comprehensive land use plans, we create these massive plans that are like, 30-year plans, and then we like something, we just throw out the baby with the bathwater because we think this is a cool project.
Well, I do use it a lot at a more of a staff level, maybe you're not aware of it. I mean, we have meetings all the time with prospective people about wanting to do things, and I get that plan out all the time, and I
Yeah.
use it, and I say, you know what? You
Doesn't
can't
meet
put that there because it's not, you can try, and,
Yeah, no, fair.
and then some of them come forwards, a lot of them turn
Yeah,
around and
and
leave.
that comment wasn't really directed at you, it's directed at council. That we could have a tool that says this isn't good land use plan, and we spent $25,000 for the study, and we do it anyway, because we think we like XYZ group or developer, so.
One of the things is I can reach out to Delafield, see what they think the value of that study was for them, so.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Yeah.
Nice, yeah.
Well, and maybe another approach is what questions do we want to have answered? So we start in the reverse. So we look as a council in planning, here are the things we'd like to know, X, Y, and Z, and then we bring that to see if those questions can be answered in a study like this. So I think,
Right, we can
more
draft the
focus.
RFP any way we want. This is the things that we want the person to look at, and, yeah.
Cool. Thank you. Any other thing for Jason?
The other thing I've had in the budget was some money for the GIS programming. We have an existing system that we're currently using. Think of it as more of a digital map. I'd like to click on a parcel and pull up things, letters, site plans, floor plans. Everything's going digitally. I heard a lot about going paperless tonight. Now that everyone is submitting plans in PDF format, it would be easy to just attach those to them. But it's going to be a program that you really have to have buy-in to. Waukesha County does have a GIS, but they don't have one for the city. They don't have all of our stuff. They don't have my enforcement letters. They don't have our cell towers. And if you want to do an analysis, you'd put in something, and data points, and then you could map out stuff for you.
Would that be something people could access through the city website or something?
Right now, it's
Or is it just a
only
tool for you?
staff, internal, but, it's something that what other communities have done is they've opened up a portion of it for the public to use. Waukesha County is open to the public.
Right.
But I think we have some security issues. We don't want them knowing where some of our stuff is. So, I think we want to keep some of that private locked down.
I'm okay spending the money on the GIS if there's at least an eye at some point to making some of that available to the residents. So if I'm interested in buying a commercial parcel, I can go to our website, click on it, like I can do in Waukesha County, and get, they've had all these major issues, and they've had all these enforcement problems or whatever. And then there's, I think, value to the community members. But if it's never gonna be something that's not gonna be, I mean, it still might be something you want and maybe we still need, but it'd be nice to be able to have an eye to open that up to the public at some point, so.
Any other questions for Jason? Thank you.
Thanks.
Who's next?
No one.
No one?
So at 7:10, we have a committee. It's 7:05 right now. We could quit right now, and we would bring back the other departments at the next meeting. We have a plan committee of the whole. We'll start out with them. But, so, the process was, we wanted to hear your comments, hear the discussion, and then we'll take those ideas and start formulating and start discussing the strategic plan. But I would think that, and maybe that gets pushed out another meeting, the strategic plan part next time we come, and there's a couple other items we can probably talk about, and then we can finish up on this at, a committee of the whole on June 6th.
I vote to stay on schedule.
Second?
So what?
What does that mean?
What do you-
To stay on schedule, go to the 7:10 meeting and bring these guys back, because
Okay.
we've got
Yeah,
4 more
as-
departments.
As long as it's with the understanding, that we're not advancing this strategic plan that you
correct.
just, right. I think there's still some
So,
things to be voting on.
Department
Yeah,
heads
I'm
that
good with
came
that.
and didn't speak, thank you very much. Really appreciate you coming.
Uh-oh.
Yes, Joe?
He's got,
I want to address the GIS comment about public viewing.
yeah.
Yes, we can make certain items to the public viewable.
Cool.
We just haven't done it yet. We
Okay.
got to decide what those are.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
That sounds great. Yeah,
I'd
that
like to
sounds
entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second?
I need a motion
So
to adjourn.
moved.
What? No, in there. I don't know who made it. Did you hear?
I made it. He
Okay, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We're going to move, for everybody in the audience, we're going to move into room 3 for the committee meetings. of Oconomowoc Common Council meeting for Tuesday, May 16th, 2023. Has appropriate meeting notification been made?
Yes, it has.
If everyone would please rise, and for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone, for coming. If you please call roll.
Alderman Ellis?
Are you here?
Here. I didn't hear you, I'm sorry.
Alderman Spiegelberg?
Here.
Alderman Mulder?
Here.
Alderman Shellpepper? Alderman Maroney?
Here.
Alderman Douglas?
Here.
Alderman Rozak?
Here.
And Alderman Altman Cloth?
Here.
I'd like to entertain a motion for approval of meeting minutes for May 2nd, 2023.
Actually, I had a question about them, and I just put away the.
Please.
For the people that were present, we pretty much, didn't we have a majority of our department heads? Were there people missing from that? I mean, it's not a big thing, just kind of curious.
That was committee of the whole.
Oh, you're right, sorry,
Yeah.
sometimes they just all go into
Yeah,
one big
yeah.
one. Okay, I'll make a motion to
It
approve
does.
it.
Any further comments or
Second.
suggestions? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
And opposed? Great. Council, without objection, I'd like to move item 9D to the front. Consider act on resolution 23-R3131 to support HR Bill 1668, the Sarah Debink Langenkamp Active Transportation Safety Act. Any objection? With no objection noted, I'd like to ask Mr. Debink to share with the council more details on this important bill coming forth to our national folks.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, everybody. My name is Dirk Debink, N57W38416 Beggs Isle Drive, Oconomowoc. That's the drill, right? So thanks for allowing me to do that. With me tonight are my wife, Terry, and 3 of our 4 children, Alicia from Madison, Matthew from Monona, and as we say these days, Sarah is always with us. Those are our 3, and then our 4th child, John Paul, just retired from the Navy. He's down in Houston, Texas area and couldn't come back up for work commitments, but we certainly appreciate being able to be here as a family. So on behalf of the entire family, we do want to thank this amazing community for your outpouring of love and support. You know, for us, it's been throughout our lives. We've called Oconomowoc our home now for 65 or something years, I think it is. But most especially now since August 25th of last year when Sarah was tragically and needlessly killed in Bethesda. While riding her bike home from her boys' school, only a few miles from the house, that they had just moved there the day before. As many of you know, Sarah and her husband Dan had just returned from a 2-year assignment in Kyiv, Ukraine, and then when the war started, they were displaced to eastern Poland, but they stayed on while their boys came to live with us because their boys couldn't stay in the war zone. And they had only been back together for 2 weeks when Sarah was killed. So despite the shock and the disbelief and the heavy grief that hung over all of us those first few weeks, Dan, our son-in-law, immediately set about developing a campaign to make a difference, to not let Sarah's death be in vain, and indeed to do what he could and what we all can do to save as many lives as possible from a similar fate. The Debink family's always been a biking family. I like to point out that Sarah learned to ride her bike on Christopher Court. Great pictures of you chasing after her. Of course, they biked to school. In my Navy assignments, I biked to my ship in San Diego. I biked to the Pentagon my last 5 years. I think I was probably the only admiral or general biking to work every day like that. But that's what we do. Sarah biked to work in Ukraine. She biked to work in Uganda. She biked to work in Cote d'Ivoire, in places all around the world, far more dangerous than Bethesda. Alicia bikes to work almost every day at the UW. She lives in the Atwood neighborhood and bikes over. Her daughter, Louise, has said this year, after Sarah died, I'm going to bike to work or bike to school every day, and she's done it. Now it's easy, the rest of it, right, because she got through the winter. So that's who we are. So Dan has led this effort in creating awareness. The first was the large bike ride you might have heard about in Washington DC, where we all started at the crash site. We had some 2,000 people in November bike to Capitol Hill. And Congressman Raskin joined us there, and he pledged to start legislation as soon as possible to fix some of the holes and the gaps in bicycling and pedestrian areas that are causing so many deaths. The statistics are really appalling. United States trails the developed world in protecting bicyclists and pedestrians. Believe it or not, we kill over 1,000 of us every year. So we're convinced we can and we must do more. If we can reduce it by 5%, that's 50 people. 10% is 100 people. We don't even, the DOT's goal is 0 fatalities. And I say, well, that's a wonderful goal. I don't think we can get there realistically, but how close can we get to that goal? So the current focus of our effort right now is to see what we can do to garner more co-sponsors for House Bill H.R. 1668, the Sarah Debink Langenkamp Active Transportation Safety Act. We currently have 28 co-sponsors, including our own representative, Scott Fitzgerald. So if you're watching, Fitz, thanks much wherever you are. He signed on pretty early on. It's pretty awesome. The bill seeks to specifically address gaps in the bicycle and pedestrian infrastructure in cities like Oconomowoc, and just like in Bethesda, Maryland, where painted white lines on streets that are considered bike lines are actually death traps. They're invitations to bikers to think and feel that they're safe, and they're anything but safe. It's just a white line on a pavement that a truck can drive right across and crush you as it did for Sarah. H.R. 1668, importantly, does not spend any new money or create any new mandate for the states. There's no appetite for any more new money, right? The money's already there. It's already authorized. It's appropriated. It's sitting in the federal coffers for active transportation issues. The problem is that we don't have enough flexibility right now to be able to spend the money on local priorities, and that's why your support is so important, because there are definitely gaps in our bike trails here in Oconomowoc and in our pedestrian ways here in Oconomowoc that we need help filling in, and that's what this bill will do. It'll give the states flexibility to fund bicycle and walking safety projects with not necessarily 100%, but up to 100% federal funds. So you'll have to prove why it has to be 100% federally funded. But my point in our calls tomorrow would be, I know the Oconomowoc budget. I sat here and listened to your budget debates. There's no more money, right? But if we can get even a 95% match for a $200,000 project, and you say we got to raise 5% for bike safety, give it to me and I'll get it done, because we can do that. It'll also make it easier for states and local governments to fund safety projects identified in previously developed safety plans. So there's safety plans that the states have. They've already probably identified some of the issues here, but they can't get it funded. So this bill seeks to fix that. And finally, as I pointed out a couple times, it highlights the need to fill in gaps in biking and walking networks, making such projects eligible for federal funding now. So in short, I believe this bill will give cities like our own a much stronger and a much louder voice to articulate what we need to enhance biking and walking safety in our own city. And as I'll be telling people tomorrow and the next day, who knows our city better than us? So, give us that opportunity. I brought with me a folder tonight that has the bill here, and if you've ever read a H.R. 1668, it's kind of meaningless because it's exempt this, add this, or whatever. And so I also did a track changes on the actual United States Code, Section 32, that I'll leave with you if anybody's interested in finding out more of the details. So as I mentioned a couple times, my wife and I are heading to Washington, D.C. early tomorrow morning to advocate for this bill. We have appointments with 9 key House members, asking them to co-sponsor the bill, and we're also meeting with 4 senators. 2 of them have already said they're going to introduce the bill into the Senate soon, Senator Cardin and Senator Van Hollen. And then I'll also be meeting with Senator Tammy Baldwin and Senator Ron Johnson, asking them to co-sponsor the bill right out of the gate. So if you know any of them, please give them a call. We hope that Senate version will be introduced soon, and then the House and the Senate will marry up. So your resolution, should it pass tonight, will be part of each of those meetings. I plan to take it with me with the packet that I'll give to each of them. On behalf of all of us, we thank you again for your ongoing support. And I know many of you, from your own personal experiences, I'm sure have had similar situations. And we've come to accept like you probably have too, the grieving process will never end. But fortunately, with the help of many here and the many that we know in many other walks of life, we've also learned that our love for Sarah will never end, and her love for us will never end. We appreciate your willingness to help us fight to save future families from such loss and grief. I know I'm way over my 3 minutes. Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate it.
No,
very much.
you can have as many minutes as you want. I think I can comfortably say from the city and the council standpoint, our heart and our love is out to you and the whole family. What you have given to our community well before this happened is incredible as we look just every place within the city of Oconomowoc and the surrounding communities. So as mayor of the city of Oconomowoc, thank you so much, all of you. And I would like to, it is a resolution, open this up for any council members, for any comments or questions for Mr. Deming or any of the family members.
No questions, just that we're honored to support it, and we're honored to call you, residents and partners in this community, and just, we're so proud that Sarah is from this, is from this community, and the service she gave to this nation, and, I'm proud to, support this motion and move that or I should say resolution, and that this council support it as well. So I'll make the motion to approve the resolution.
Do I have a second?
And I want to second that, absolutely.
So a second, Kevin Ellis. Any other further comments or questions? Would you call roll, please?
Alderman Ellis.
Yes.
Alderman Spiegelberg.
Aye.
Alderman Mulder.
Aye.
Alderman Shellpepper.
Aye.
Alderman Maroney.
Aye.
Alderman Douglas.
Aye.
Alderman Rozak.
Aye.
And Alderman Altman Cloth.
Aye.
Thank you very much. Now, to continue on a little bit, we have a letter that we're going to have you be able to take with you to Washington, D.C. tomorrow. I have 2 copies, Council. Tina, can you go around, and we'd like to get signatures tonight so they can leave with an original copy. At the same time, I'll be signing with great honor the resolution of support for this bill and for everything that's done. While everyone is making their signatures, if we could have the Debick family up here, I think it would be nice to get a photo with the Debick family, our entire council, and our 2 chiefs and city administrator, who are all signing this document in support, if you're comfortable. You good? Okay, come on up. Yeah, right in there is good. So council members, once you sign, you can come on up here.
Oops, sorry, I'm sorry.
Mayor, do you want this now? Okay.
I already got like 5.
Thank you very much, and council.
Sorry, I'll take it. Oh, I thought you were. And then she's finishing up here.
Kevin signed the letter. Please make sure you sign the letter.
is precious. We'll make sure it was well spent. Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
It's an honor to know you.
We'll go ahead and continue our council meeting. Our next item up are comments and suggestions from citizens. I do have one blue card. If you're a citizen, I'll call your name. Please come up to the podium. You have approximately 3 minutes to share what you want to share with the council on any topic that you wish. When you come up, please state your name, address, and where you live. Thank you. Emily Williamson? Emily, thank you.
I have amazing handwriting, so apologize. Emily Williamson, I am representing Pick and Save and Metro Market stores in the Oconomowoc community. Address on the card is 875 East Wisconsin. That's our office address.
And where do you live, please?
I live in West Dallas.
West Dallas, thank you.
So thank you for providing me this opportunity to comment publicly on the proposed ordinance 23-01046 on third-party gift card procurement. My name is Emily Williamson, and I'm a corporate affairs manager for Pick and Save and Metro Market stores. I also want to introduce two of the members of my team that I brought with us tonight. We have Travis Williams, who is our district manager for asset protection, as well as Jake Nelson, who is our acting district leader representing our operations team. I also want to thank Chief Pfister in the back for his proactivity in working to address this matter. So I'm here tonight because I'd like to propose creating a partnership on how to address the safety and prevent potential fraud in the Oconomowoc community in lieu of passing the proposed ordinance 23-01046 tonight. Our focus as an organization is to provide a safe and enjoyable shopping experience to those who enter our stores. As an organization, we have many safeguards in place to prevent gift card fraud and act quickly when an instance is reported. This includes dollar thresholds, training our teams to engage with shoppers purchasing to find out the occasion, intervening when we suspect potential fraud. Travis, our district asset protection manager, has been overseeing this area, which includes our Oconomowoc store since January, and the team since then has reported no instances of gift card fraud. So we appreciate Chief Pfister reaching out to our store director to surface this concern in the community and look forward to learning more about the scope of these instances and how together we can help address community concerns. Within the proposed ordinance, we would like to draw attention to a few of the elements that we feel would warrant additional consideration. The first of which is third-party gift card. So the way that it's defined here, it sounds like the concern might be for Visa and MasterCard, which is referred to as open-loop gift cards because you can use them at anywhere you want to shop. This ordinance, as written, also impacts the closed-loop, those retailer-specific gift cards, as they are also processed through the Visa and MasterCard processing networks. So to give you some example and data, in the week of May 3rd through 9th, our Metro Market Pabst Farms location, 18% of the gift card sales were open loop. So the average value of those open loop gift cards was about $35. The second point I'd like to mention is the self-checkout call out. So we'd recommend allowing for the option of adding a prompt to require a human interaction, like an ID check for an alcohol purchase. Across the state of Wisconsin, we have about 65% of our transactions go through self-checkout. So that's 105 stores across the state, and about 65% of the transactions are self-checkout. Let me share why this is important to us. One of our loyalty programs is to provide fuel points for shoppers. So to quantify, again, the week of May 3rd through 9th, Pabst Farms location, shoppers who purchased, we had a promotion where 4 times fuel points, you could earn 4 times fuel points on gift card purchases. So the 330 shoppers who purchased the closed loop, those retailer-specific gift cards, at that store the average value of each card was $40 per card. So for a $40 gift card purchase, that shopper earns 16 cents off per gallon for their next trip to the gas station. Fuel prices that week were about $3.46 per gallon, so they paid about $3.30 per gallon, which is why our shoppers see this as a value program for us. The third thing I'd like to call out is the violations and penalty clause. So as written, the penalties are subject to 9.40, which would place retailers in the community in the position of becoming potentially added casualty of these crimes when faced with these additional penalties.
I'm going to try to have you wrap up, please.
Yep. So in closing, I want to ask the council to propose creating a partnership on how to address the safety and prevent financial fraud in the Oconomowoc community in lieu of passing the proposed ordinance 23-01046 tonight. Our team here will be here at the conclusion of the meeting and welcome the opportunity to share our contact information and address any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Can I ask a question? Well, we'll wait till it comes up.
No.
Oh,
We'll wait till the,
no, that's what I said, when it
yeah.
comes up.
You asked if you could ask a question, and you said no. That was actually fun to do, guys, so.
It was very enjoyable.
I would like to ask, next up on comment is Chief Bowen.
They look
Better
alike.
looking, but no, real briefly, I wanted to quickly introduce one of our new battalion chiefs. So as they're working shift, I want to get them acclimated to the communities that they're serving. So with that, I'd like to have Guy Caribou, one of our new battalion chiefs, come up, just introduce himself and get to know you as council. Be nice.
Great.
Unlike me.
Did you guys fill out a blue card?
I didn't see a blue card. I need a blue card.
The last minute invite, actually. Mr. Mayor and the Common Council, I thank you for having me and giving me the opportunity to kind of introduce myself here. It's a pleasure to be in your chambers tonight. I was a recent addition to Western Lakes Fire District within the last month and a half now. It's a pleasure to be here. Amazing growth and development as far as the fire district goes. All 212 miles of it. I am coming from the city of West Dallas, which is 11 square miles, very dense and busy, so it's a different layout and lay of the land. But I can say with no doubt in my mind that the direction the fire district is going, from my experience and my perspective, being a Air Force firefighter, coming from the city of West Dallas and sprinkling in a couple other of volunteer paid-on-call departments throughout the 22 years I've been in the fire service, I see really good things here and a great opportunity and impact for the citizens of this area, undoubtedly, in the whole district. Just response times improving. We still have a long way to go, but what I can see in the short time I've been here is a lot of motivation and positive attitudes, and I think it's turning around the attitudes of everybody that I'm working with, just seeing more full-time spots being taken, which is impacting overall morale, impacting the service to the customers, and overall, protecting the safety of the citizens throughout the district. So I appreciate it. I'm glad to be here. I'm glad to be in front of you tonight. It's a pleasure. So,
Welcome.
thank you, sir.
Welcome.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yep.
Any other comments from anyone in the audience? I don't have any other blue cards. Is there anybody that wants to make a comment? Without any further comments? Without any other comments, we do have a request to bring up item 9A, bring that forward without objection for a staff member. Without objection, Christy, would you please come forward?
Thank you.
So item I-9A is just the update on the Oz Plaza project. So Christy, thank you for all your work, and we look forward to your update.
Absolutely. Thank you for the invite, and it's been a while since I've seen everybody here, and we have some new faces, so it's a good time to dust off some cobwebs and introduce what we've been working on and where we're going from here. Oz Plaza, as you know, is immediately adjacent to our city hall. It has become this tourism destination and this fascination year-round. And we've been at awe of it, even during the COVID pandemic and where we were living and how people were adjusting. And it's just this draw in this community, and we've slowly been working on it, but now is the time to finish it. So I had the honor to present back in April of 2021 as a go, no-go with the council. We were like, what could this be? What could happen here? How could we make it safer? How could we make it a great place to experience and to build off of already what's going on in Oconomowoc? So I appreciate the fresh eyes on this. But this was the proposal that I had presented back in '21. As you can see, the goal is ultimately to create a safe place all the way from Fowler Lake parking lot to East Wisconsin and building off of what we already have. We have these beautiful statues. We were able to execute a mural during 2020 and to make the backdrop, but we really wanted to examine how far that Yellow Brick Road could go. So now that we're taking a look at that, we expanded what the project budget could be, and we have a new update. It doesn't look that much different, and I want to point out a couple of the few instances. So I invite you to join me on the Yellow Brick Road. So as you know, our lovely characters, they're most well known from the East Wisconsin Avenue. This is a plan looking as if we were flying above. So we have East Wisconsin down below. Our statues would remove themselves for a little bit, maybe go visit some friends, some people in Kansas, and then get a little facelift. We are looking to update the statues with a little hyper-realistic to give them a little more depth and character, a little maybe some glistening on their shoes and brighten up their suntan. But we'd like to remove them because specifically we'd like to reswirl the Yellow Brick Road. We have so many lovely residents and tourists that come through and actually sing the song as they're spinning around in circles.
I know. Follow the Yellow Brick Road. My office is right next to
So
it,
now
I
that we
know.
have a great backdrop and mural, we really want to expose that and have that with the glistening Emerald City. If you've noticed the sparkles in Emerald City, they shine. So the characters would be repositioned. We would swirl the Yellow Brick Road all the way through, keeping this safety path, as well as enlightening as part of the experience. I kept with the rainbow seating that would be movable seating and open for everyone. We had the honor of having this plaza accepted as a city park recently, and which has allowed us to really move forward and capture this space for the community. So we also are adding and keeping, we had several more poles, but through the work of understanding the new lighting system and a better lighting system, we would have poles and we would hang cable lights between all the way. Taking a look at the, I'm gonna lack a better term, our armpit of the alleyway, because there's gotta be somewhere in back of house for City Hall. We have this gorgeous corner we abut. We have this lovely little area right here which has every utility and transformer, and we got AT&T in there. We have our mega transformer for the city. We had to be able to access it. And if it goes down, our trucks for utilities need to be able to grab it. So we decided to terminate our ambient city, lighting here and then create just a little bit more of a transition all the way up to our North Plaza. While we're doing this, we had several discussions with Parks and with DPW that we'd like to safely continue the rest of the sidewalk here, ADA ramps included, and then we might as well make a little hopscotch to experience that art, unexpected art that you would have, that would catch your childhood eye and all adults as well. So I did include this in your packet. It is the abbreviated but very punctual update. As you can see, the poles we're looking to utilize match our downtown. We're going to expand on more planters. We are looking to add Galinda and the corridor. One of the other changes was we're not going to do a living wall here along to hide the back of House of Grill 164. We're taking a look at how potentially we can have the house that killed the witch out of Barnwood as well. And then obviously we are always looking for ways that our community can interact and our residents can interact and our friends who come visit us to tell stories and to share the stories that they may not be able to Google Oconomowoc or know how to spell it. So how does our name get out there as a place to come and go and be? Wings are a phenomenal way. So we would love to make flying monkey wings, not only for the adults, the kids, but your furry friends too, and to showcase along the way. We did redo our numbers and double check where we were standing, what's taken a look at since inflation hit and building supply and demand has been very critical and has done its eves and flows over the past year and a half. And we are proud to say that we're still about 150. That was 150 is what we proposed last time we saw this. We were able to look at more cost savings, how that would be flexed, smarter choices, and really to do it the right way if we're gonna do this alleyway. So, this does include contingency for the construction still. We kept with that with 10 and then 2% for design. We have a couple design ideas we'd like to allow flexibility on, to incorporate on, and to enhance this plaza and alleyway. We are continuing to look at funding opportunities. We're investigating at the pavers can be named. Our current pavers aren't shoveled. So we want to make sure if we are going to start to shovel them and use the brush system so we don't put any additional strain on our parks and our DPW crew that need to clear the sidewalk, that they withstand. So we're taking a look and investigating that as well. So we're hoping to fund through community partnerships and develop a harder strategy, as our goal is to implement this over the winter time. And they go on their trip early spring, and our goal is June 1st. So I appreciate your time. I appreciate your energy towards this and support, and I'd just like to provide the update.
Thank you. Council members, do you have any questions? Alderman Rozak.
Christie, I think we talked briefly about this at the tourism committee. As of right now, there's been no fundraising at all for this?
When this was proposed, there was a lot of also other projects that have come within the community. I'll be honored to say we have a lovely $15 check from an individual towards, but we have everything set up and ready to go. We have a fund ready to accept funds, and I believe there's partnerships out there that are ready to showcase that they want to do a donation. They're just waiting for an official kickoff.
Okay.
So I don't believe I have it completely funded, though, to be frank.
Okay. Do you anticipate, when do you need all the 150 in the bank by? I mean, if you want to
Before I
start
spend it.
Well.
Good answer.
Before.
When do you need the money in the bank so that we can actually move forward with the project and bid it out? Like, what's the funding goal? We need 150 by September, October of
Well,
this
to be
year?
very honest, the majority of the costs go into the removal and the laying of the concrete and the pavers. That's the majority of the funds, and rightfully so. So that has to be done in timing. We can really get a gauge on what that looks like, and that's what we're trying to figure out, is a combination between concrete and pavers? Is it all pavers? Is it all concrete? We really like the yellow brick road to be yellow, like yellow. Doesn't do us any good if it's muted.
Right.
Or faded, or we have to paint it every year. So we're trying to navigate what that maintenance looks like. To be honest, my goal is this fall. I'd feel very comfortable. I don't like to spend things I don't have or move forward on things I don't have. So
That's a good
locking items
policy.
in the budget.
Alderman Mulder.
Is the fundraising going through the Oconomowoc Friends of the Oconomowoc Parks? Or
Currently,
is-
I had a fund because I wasn't a park, or this wasn't a park up until recently. So I have a fund with the city
So
that's
continuing
lined.
that.
So it would be direction of Lori if she wants to change that. But I think that's where my check went.
And also, thank you to Alderman Spiegelberg that's worked hard over the last couple of years with Christie, so I want to make sure council's aware of that. Well, thank you very much, Christie, and I'm sure they'll have some more questions for you moving
Yes.
forward.
Appreciate it. Thank you for your time again.
Tap your heels. No place like home.
No place.
Thank you so much. Next on the agenda, consent agenda, item 6A1. I'd like to entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
On to committee reports. Consider act on resolution 23-R3129 granting new Class B intoxicating liquor fermented malt beverage license to Hugs and Vino LLC Bella Gusta. Do you want to take that, Tina, or no?
I'm sorry.
Yes.
I wasn't ready for that. Okay. We received a new application for Hugs and Vino. They're taking over Bello Gusto. They're not changing the name. They're keeping it the same. They're changing their operation. It's going to be a first floor and second floor with wine dispensers on the second floor. They're requesting a full Class B fermented liquor license. Right now, it's a current B and a C. We do recommend.
Any questions or comments from council? I'd like to entertain a motion.
So moved. Rozak, second.
Any further questions or comments? Call roll, please.
Alderman Ellis?
Aye.
Alderman Spiegelberg?
Aye.
Alderman Mulder? Alderman Shellpepper?
Aye.
Alderman Maroney?
Aye.
Alderman Douglas?
Aye.
Alderman Rozak?
Aye.
And Alderman Altman Cloth.
Aye.
Under our next item, consider act on ordinance 23-01047 to repeal and recreate section 5.236 of the Oconomowoc Code of Ordinances related to open burning. We have our two chiefs here. Thank you for coming. Council, please recognize this as the first reading. Chief Bowen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Chief Pfister and I started talking about this about a year ago, as there were some inconsistencies and limitations with the current ordinance, and it hadn't been updated in a lengthy period of time. So we've worked through this with Administrator Fry and Attorney Riffle to make amendments to the current ordinance. Currently, the ordinance, as it's written, prohibits open burning with the exception of cooking, fire training, and bonfires with a special permit. We did amend it because of technology changes and advances in outdoor fire pits that are safe and are contained. So we made changes to para A within the ordinance, further defining the location that a fire pit, fireplace, or container could be utilized. It still prohibits the burning of leaves and other materials. We kept para B, which was training for the fire department, and para C for the bonfires for special events. We did also add para D for prescribed prairie burns that are authorized because prairies need to be burned per DNR and other regulations, but that would also require a special permit, that it's not people just burning grass. So those are the changes that we worked through to help both of our departments and our community, still keeping a nice clean community with outside burning and not allowing leaves and all that obnoxious smoke.
Any comments or questions from council for either Chief Pfister or Chief Bowen? Alderman Ellis.
I understand that there were some additions that we were considering. Can we talk about that now?
They are not presenting any proposed changes.
Okay.
Might be an older person.
The committee, I believe, approved an amended motion. So we could pull that up, Mark. That'd be great.
I'm here, Mark.
Yeah, just that open burning right there.
So my question is to legal at this point. What are your thoughts?
Well, it's already prohibited.
So you're saying it's prohibited in what has
Yes,
already
what's being
been
presented. You
presented?
So then
can't
why are
do
we-
any of that.
So then why are we including the burning of yard waste and green wood in the language? That's already prohibited.
Didn't Chief say?
I
during-
don't see anything in the, I drafted this. I don't see any green wood.
No, it's not in this version.
That's
because
what
this-
I just wrote,
this is
Stan.
what
I drafted that, actually, the red language.
Yeah, there's, in what they proposed, there's a section that's now included in Chaz's version that says, the burning of yard waste and green wood is prohibited. So there's a prohibition already in section A.
Could I respond to that?
Is it redundant? I just
Chief
wanna know.
Pfister?
The reason that we talked about this, we talked with City Administrator Fry on adding these two items, because this is the areas that we have the most violations in the city is yard waste, and then burning freshly cut branches, green, wood, okay? So we wanted to bring those especially out. So when we're talking to citizens in the community, my officers are out there enforcing this and handing out the ordinance. It's right there, those two things. We decided to make it as simple as possible and not go into list every possible item that can be burned, you know, or
Yes, it's
is
a fair-
prohibited.
A fair observation. So if you folks want to add the rest of it, I mean,
I get, my thought on it was, the concerns that I've received, I mean, the complaints that I receive in the community is about the unauthorized burning of material right now. It has been less about people being able to use their fire pits and their fire containers as opposed to, here's what's happening right now. When you go read our current ordinance, which wasn't included in this packet and that we haven't actually seen, it's super vague and it's very poorly worded and it leaves a lot of room to interpretation. So I guess my thought on it was like, oh, we're doing a great job here, and I appreciate you guys presenting this. And I think at the end of the day, if we approved it, you know, as you guys currently presented it, could I live with that? And the more I think about it, probably. But I guess my thought is let's make it as good as we can and be as clear as we can. And I think we cover a lot of the, pretty much any situation through that additional language. So that's why I proposed it. The committee passed it 2-1. Alderman Douglas voted against it, so it wasn't a unanimous recommendation. So I leave it to the discretion of the council whether they want to.
Alderman Altman-Cloth?
I don't want to jump the gun here, but if Attorney Riffle's saying that as it's worded, our bases are covered, and then what Chief Pfister brought up in committee about the list will never be completely exhaustive for what someone's going to come up with. So this just kind of makes it cleaner and easier for your guys and gals. I'd like to go ahead and make a motion.
can I just,
Yes.
okay. So Chaz has a really good point. We don't need that last sentence here. The burning of yard waste and green wood is prohibited because you have only dry, pre-cut wood in lengths more than 18 inches. That by itself says no yard waste, no green wood, dried, not green. It's already covered. So I think you have a good idea that, okay, well, you know, we want to make it very clear that everything else could be in here. It's not all-inclusive, which is, I think, Alderman Close position here. Just get rid of that last sentence and you're covered.
I just want it to be plain, though, for our average citizens who read that ordinance and understand what they're allowed to do. And I guess I'm concerned is using like what would the language, like, is it not like affirmative language as to making it very clear, like what you can do?
Well, you could put, instead of the burning of
why-
yard waste and green wood is prohibited, everything else in the world is prohibited.
Yeah, like you're saying, there could be one other sentence that
But
said, all
as-
other
Yeah.
materials prohibited,
But
period.
as a lawyer, you already have that if you just get rid of that last sentence.
Well, I've spoken enough on this, so.
So then can I make a motion to approve this, waive the second reading, but eliminate the burning of yard waste and green wood?
In that last
Could I-
sentence, in other words.
Could I also, someone brought up the pre-cut wood. If you want clarity, like.
Do we have a second?
Second.
I'd like to open up for comments. Alderman Mulder?
I find the word pre-cut unusual as well, only dried pre-cut wood as opposed to what, putting a whole tree in there? Like the word pre-cut can be construed to mean wood that you, I don't know. That
It can't
when
be
you
more
talk
than
about
18
clarity,
inches.
Which we've already said, so, okay. I don't really care, but that's a confusing way to talk about wood.
Yeah, I like that part of Greenwood because I think everybody gets what that is.
But you could remove the words pre-cut and the sentence would read the same.
Mhm.
Because you're talking about wood, no more than 18 inches. Dried wood.
Now
We were just trying to avoid somebody taking a whole log that's, you know, big and trying to burn.
So we have a motion and a second. Any further comments or
I just-
questions?
Well,
Alderman Rozak?
One general comment and form at the council. I think, and this isn't necessarily against Jennifer or Matt, who, you know, seconded. if someone proposes a motion, or an amendment, I think we should at least consider that first, I get what we're doing, and maybe there's not but I don't necessarily want to vote against this statute as written, but I would like to consider Chaz's, motion to amend first. And if it fails, it fails, and it seems like it will. But I would like us to get the opportunity to do that when we jump the gun on the vote, and I can't stop you guys from doing
Well,
that.
I didn't hear a full motion from Chaz. If
Well,
he made suggestions, but not a motion.
The ordinance, though, presented to this council that was recommended for approval was
Mm-hmm.
my amended motion.
That's why I had asked what I did, because of the fact that when we were in the other room, we talked about that, and I just wanted clarification on what I was actually voting on.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Okay.
I just,
Before you do that,
Yeah,
I
I'm not
think
trying to,
there's
like,
I think there's a point that Matt Rozak is making that is really good, that if there's an amendment that somebody wants to do, we need to make sure we bring that forward, but it has to be really, really clear so that we move forward. Right now, currently, we have a motion and a second on the current way this is written with the removal of the one sentence. That's what we're currently voting on now, and I'd like to leave it open for discussion. You can also, Alderman, withdraw your motion if you would prefer.
just a general comment.
No, and I agree with you, Matt. I think that's very good. We have to be clear. So we have a motion and a second. Call roll, please.
Alderman Ellis?
Aye.
Alderman Spiegelberg?
Nay.
Alderman Mulder?
Aye.
Alderman Shellpepper?
Nay.
Alderman Maroney?
Nay.
Alderman Douglas?
Aye.
Alderman Rozak?
Nay.
Alderman Altman Clough?
Aye.
Your first tie of the new term. Should have been paying closer attention.
No, I was paying attention. I was counting on my fingers. To be very candid, I think that when we have something like this, we want to have something that we're all really confident in, and I'm hearing kind of mixed confidence in this. What I heard from Chief Pfister is that this will help the officers, and it'll add to some clarity. So I'm going to vote yes on this, to move this ordinance forward. If we feel that we want to do something to improve it, we're also wide open to those opportunities. Let's give the officers something that they can work with and enforce that's clear. And if we want to make it better, let's make it better. And I think this exercise on this vote, we really want to try to be as clear as we can moving forward. So there isn't confusion on amendments and things moving forward, as Alderman Rozak stated. He was exactly right. So, aye. So we'll move on to our next item. Thank you, gentlemen. Next item is consider act on the amended JT 214 jurisdictional transfer agreement.
Thank you, Mayor. The item for you tonight has to deal with the section of Wisconsin Avenue, East Wisconsin Avenue, more specifically out in front of Laurelburg area, McDonald's and Laurelburg's. So when the state reconstructed the street, they did a jurisdictional transfer to the city. At the time, they provided a document with the wording that it was only going to include the portion of the street within the corporate limits of the city. I'm sure that the DOT at that time thought that they were giving up this whole section, and so it's kind of been it's never really been clarified in their minds as to who should be doing what. So we've been working with the Village of Oconomowoc Lake because they have the same issue that we do, that it wasn't being maintained out there by the DOT because of the fact that they didn't think that it was theirs to maintain. So I will give the DOT credit. When they came back, instead of trying to expand the area that the city's responsible for, they actually reduced it. And they made it very simple. We have where the city limits crosses diagonally right by McDonald's driveway, and they said that that will be the line that determines responsibility. So the city will have a little less jurisdictional area there to maintain. So we are recommending approval of the amended jurisdictional transfer agreement number 214.
I'd like to open it up for discussion. Council, any questions for Administrator Fry?
I do.
Alderman Ellis.
A few years back, and I'd mentioned this in the meeting, I didn't want to get too involved in it. There was an accident over by Pick and Save. And I was one of the first on scene, so I went ahead and I made a phone call to the city. And the city said, no, it is the village. And the village called the village, and the village said, no, it's the town. And I finally then went ahead and I called the city again and said, dudes, I'm out here directing traffic. I don't think you want that. And then you finally went ahead and you sent somebody. This kind of concerns me because we're actually, who is going to be in charge of this area? Whose jurisdiction is this? And are we still going to be able to have the snow plowing? Are we still going to be able to have the traffic direction if we need it? Or is this buck being passed along just so that it can be?
No, and that's a very good comment. It's one that we've heard in the past. So the item before you tonight is just the jurisdictional transfer agreement that's between the city and the DOT. What you're talking about, when there's accidents out in this area, you have the city of Oconomowoc, you have the village of Oconomowoc Lake, and you have the town of Oconomowoc all come together right in that area.
Right there.
And so that's where the confusion comes up when, where did the accident take place, where the vehicle's sitting? And so when you call and say, I'm out in front of Pick and Save, everybody's gonna say, well, that's the village of Oconomowoc Lake. That's for them to respond to. You know, if it's further in front of McDonald's, it's obviously ours. But the document that's here tonight is not going to replace any of that because the municipal boundaries are what create that confusion because they come together right there. But as far as the snowing and the patching and the plowing and everything, yes, that'll all be taken care of.
Any other questions or comments on the item in front of you? Like to entertain a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion, comment? Call roll, please.
Alderman Ellis.
Aye.
Alderman Spiegelberg.
Aye.
Alderman Mulder.
Aye.
Alderman Shellpepper.
Aye.
Alderman Maroney.
Aye.
Alderman Douglas.
Aye.
Alderman Rozak.
Aye.
And Alderman Altman Clark.
Aye.
Next up is consider act on ordinance 23-01046 to create 9.32 of the City of Oconomowoc Municipal Code regarding third-party gift card procurement. And I want to mention to council, this is the second reading, and you've also have had comments from earlier in tonight's meeting. So I'd like to have Chief, if you can go through this with us, that would be great.
Great, thank you. I'm reporting back. Alderman Shellpepper had asked me to go around and talk to all the businesses that this would affect in our municipality. I have done that and gone around. I can tell you the only one that had concern was Roundy's with their, what they talked about here tonight as well. The only other one was Sendex, who was a little worried about the penalty, the $1,500 and so forth. I have talked to them and explained that, and since then, they are okay as well. I was then contacted by the Grocers Association as well for the state of Wisconsin. They, at this time, have this in front of their attorneys reviewing it, and they did ask if the council could hold off on the vote until they could comment on it. That was their request at this time. I am happy to say that actually going around, there are several places that are doing this or doing more at their stores. Piggly Wiggly, for one, has all their cards behind the service counter, so they have to interact with a person. They've actually gone another step further because of some of their customers losing money by this way. They now only require cash for those cards as well. That's not what I'm recommending, but that's where they're doing as well. I spoke to Fleet Farm. They are all in favor of this. They have stated it's a large problem at their store and most of their stores in Wisconsin as well. So they were actually looking forward to this. And Quick Trip as well was in favor of this. They said they would be able to adjust their computer systems. So that's my report back.
Alderman Altman-Cloth.
First of all, I just want to thank you for the work that you've done on this. Not so much a question, more of a statement. So a couple days after you had presented this last, I was at one of our local Walmart shopping for work, and I asked the cashier, and then the front-end manager came over. I already shared this with Chief Pfister. And I just kind of asked them, you know, as cashiers and front-end managers, what are your thoughts on this? And they said, oh my goodness, can we have this here? And I said, well, unfortunately, I don't represent your municipality. You'll have to talk to them. And then talking with you the other day, and just hearing about Fox Brothers, which is our Piggly Wiggly, which is, you know, locally family-owned, the fact that they already stepped up and are doing something to protect our community and our residents, I can't say enough for Piggly Wiggly, you know, for doing that. And, you know, sadly, I think that's kind of a difference between maybe a family-owned business and a corporate-owned business. I'm very disheartened to hear about Metromark not being a little bit more on board with protecting their customers.
Alderman Rozak.
So a couple quick questions for you, Chief. One, do we have to use the provisions, the penalty provisions in 9.4 because they're pretty onerous? I mean, is that the only penalty?
I'm sorry, what was that?
Or do we have to use the penalty provisions in section 9.4, which is that big fine, isn't it like 15 grand or something?
1,500.
Right, the reason that, I talked with our city attorney, and the reason we did 1,500 is that's our standard for anything that would have restitution, anything where it's a mandatory court appearance. And what we wanted was, it's not the fine is adjusted, okay? It could be back down to zero, could be $10, but it's more to get them in and have our city attorney, myself, the judge, talk to them about complying. I really don't see us, you know, having to enforce this unless a company just outright, you know, says, we're not gonna do this.
So, Chief,
We're
that was
not
the-
out to.
That was the assistant city attorney, right?
Sorry, yes.
So
Well, yeah.
Because I'm compelled a little bit by what the Metro Market folks said. One of her quotes was, we're creating an additional victim. You know, you have a 15-year-old kid doing a checkout and, you know, forgets to check the ID. The guy buys 5 or 6 Visa things and it was stolen out of my car 5 minutes before. Now they've got to come in and pay a $1,500 fine. It is kind of like we're punishing, and I'm not saying this was your intention, but there is a little bit of, you know, are we punishing the victims here who are, you know, kind of victimized as well? I mean, they're the conduit, but, you know, they're kind of victimized as well because now they got to fine, they got to go to court, they got to send a corporate rep there.
They shouldn't
Sure,
try to
I understand what you're saying, Alderman Rozak.
Yeah.
We wouldn't issue a ticket there.
Yeah.
It's,
probably not.
we have discretion.
Yeah, I know.
If a clerk
Yeah, I know you guys
accidentally makes a mistake or this or that, we're not gonna issue a ticket to the store or the, you know, this is for the organizations that simply will not comply with the ordinance itself.
Right. So what the other comment I have is the fact that the Grocers Association reached out and said they're evaluating and get back to us. I don't really care what the Grocers Association says. I mean, I mean, you wanted to comment, they had more than enough time. This is like a, you know, a page and a half ordinance. They could have sent something in if they wanted to. So I don't really put a lot of stock into that. And I'm not going to hold off on a vote because some, you know, group out there says they want to talk more about it.
Alderman Mulder.
Yeah, so I did speak with Grocers Association earlier today, as well as several representatives from Roundy, so I had some of this information prior to tonight. I found their statistics compelling. I do, I guess, generally trust that they're not having issues with it, and I guess what I spoke to you last time, Chief, and I didn't have a chance to follow up because I spoke with them at noon, was that this was something that was happening several times a day or multiple times a week. I don't know the extent of how much city time is being spent on this, how often you're going out to calls, how many times we're receiving this. And, you know, the comments you made, Jennifer, about, you know, Walmart wants this done, or, I mean, any company can do this. All they have to do is require their employee. We don't have to need a law to tell someone to
No,
check the
agreed.
ID. This is any company that wants to do this. I'd asked this on the last time, and if we do move forward with this, and we're only requiring Visa and MasterCard, as Pick and Save pointed out, that's only 20% or 18% of their cards that we're covering. So we're leaving 82% of the problem out there, covering a very small percent that has an average value of $35. Most retailers in the community don't even offer these products, except for the very large ones, Piggly Wiggly, Quick Trip, Fleet Farm. So, so I'm not exactly against doing this, and I certainly want to support the police, so don't take it that way. But it doesn't feel like, and this isn't a common ordinance that's out there. I feel like we're being a little quixotic here and not fully identifying or coming up with the best way to solve this problem, putting it on major national retailers to enact a policy they could enact themselves if they were really having a business problem. But I'll let you respond to that.
Sure. The problem isn't theirs. It's the victim. The store ate out any money, okay?
The victim isn't
So,
either.
the person, and here's where it is. It's a severely underreported crime. Roundy's has no idea how many victims have been there, okay? Because I have meetings with the senior group. The mayor's been in these meetings and so forth, and we discuss what are the issues with the senior population. This is a major issue that comes up with them. They are embarrassed to come and report it to the police. So if they don't report it to the police, how do they know? Okay, they don't find out because they're getting their money. It may, through the credit card process and this flush out eventually. But most of the time, the victim really is the person who's losing the money out of their bank account. Because they're going to their bank account, it's hooked up, they're using their bank card, these things, and they're buying the Visa cards. Credit card companies don't care, okay? Because they're like, you bought it, okay? It's not our fault you were scammed. It's not like somebody else used your credit card where they'll reimburse you or do those things. That doesn't happen on this. So that's number one, okay? Now, you raised like 3 points.
So you're saying if someone gets their card stolen out of their car and then they go buy a gift card for that, the credit card companies aren't compensating that fraudulent purchase?
That's one part.
Okay.
Okay, that's one part. They will do that, okay?
Yeah.
The problem becomes as well is, I'm trying to solve two problems in one here, okay, for them. The last major incident we had happened at Roundy's, okay, where we had 3 gentlemen from Cuba, came into Florida, came up here, had 52 different credit cards, different names.
Nice.
And they sat at the self-checkout, and it was over $6,000 worth of cards they were buying. Not one clerk came up to them and said anything, okay? We actually had a citizen who called us on it, and we ended up catching them in the act of this. I'm looking to avoid that. I'm looking to have a way that when our seniors are coming through and they're telling them, go to the self-checkout, okay? My biggest part here is have a person. They do a great job, and they've said it, they educate their staff so that if they're coming through the line, that they ask them, hey, casually, how, what are you doing? Is this for a birthday? And if they got multiple cards, they react to it. I agree with them. My issue is the self-checkouts. And even if you have a person standing at the end of the self-checkout, those are so busy, chaotic, that person isn't going to pay attention to grandma over here or grandpa or my aunt, doing it.
Oh, Chief, so back up for a second. You said, what you're saying is something different than I think the original question. You're saying that they're forcing elderly citizens at gunpoint or knife point to buy cards for them, not stealing
No, I didn't
them
say
out of
forcing. I said they're scamming them, okay? They have. So here's what happens. My neighbor just had this happen to her. She pulled in my driveway Friday, okay? She was on the phone, she was on her computer, boom, Microsoft came up on the computer. said, you owe, your bank account's messed up, you immediately have to pay $1,400 to us. And then, so she talks to this guy, and he says, well, you know, we can't take cash and this and that, and we can't take credit card, but if you go and get one of these Visa cards, you know, we could take that as payment over the phone. She gets in her car, starts driving over to, actually, Metro Market is where she was going. And the guy actually then transfers her to another guy. He says, well, this is the guy that needs to take payment. I'm not allowed to take your payment. Well, they each have their skit. It's memorized, all right? So now this guy comes on. Lucky for her, she banks right next door to Pick and Save. And she went, well, why don't I just go in the bank and ask them? She goes in, and they're like, hang up the phone right now. You're being scammed. If she wouldn't have thought of that, she would have went in and then started buying all these gift cards and then gave them the numbers of the gift cards off the
How
bat.
would this ordinance have
So-
stopped that?
Because I'm trying to do two things here, okay? One is that, because they're telling them to go through the self-checkout. They trade their employees. If you're in the line, they're gonna be on the phone with her, okay? They're gonna see this, and they can stop that transaction. They can tell a person, we're not gonna sell them to you. That's what should be happening, okay? That's one part. The other part is, yes, the stealing of the credit cards and coming through and just buying them. On a self-checkout, the machine has no idea if you're that person. So I'm trying to do two things here at once, okay? So that is the big part where the credit cards are stolen. Now, I'll be honest with you, a lot of our stolen credit cards end up at Walmart in Delafield, okay? But they tend to steal them in one community and use them in another because they want to get the heck out of that community. So we do get a lot of Delafields. So that's why, you know, I've talked to other agencies and, you know, they're all on board with this as well to try and help. So it's kind of a twofold thing.
Alderman Altman-Cloth.
Just to kind of add to what you said, my conversation with the ladies at Walmart, and I wasn't going to say what city, but you said the city. The ladies there said on a weekly basis, it's very sad how many transactions they do stop. You know, so I mean, just can't even imagine, like you said before, how many go unreported.
So can we have the representative from?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so if a representative from, actually, just one finish, Alderman Altman-Cloth first.
Can you let her finish?
Yeah.
Completely incongruent
Yeah.
that random people at Walmart that Jennifer talks to, that happens all the time.
Let's go back to Jennifer. She's on a
But I mean, also
train
keep
of
in mind that, I mean, you can go to Walmart. I was there at 7 o'clock in the morning on a Thursday. It's the same staff every Thursday when I go in there and shop for work, so definitely stop in and talk to them. But I do think, however you're gonna decide to vote on this, Metro Mart is one little piece of the people that serve our community. When we have places like Fox Brothers, Sendix, Fleet Farm, that are completely on board with what Pfister wants to do, just, I guess just be careful not to let, you know, the big corporate people sway us.
Well, I think at this point, if folks from Roundy's, if you'd like to comment, make a comment, and you're welcome to do that if it could be brief. And then council, if you have any questions to ask them, we can do that at this time.
Yeah, of course. I think one of the things
Can you
that-
bring the microphone down to you? Thanks.
My height, absolutely. So I think one of the things to address that is that we utilize gift cards in a different way in our organization, and a lot of our gift card purchases are for self-use because we have the Fuel Points program. So I don't know how many gift cards the others are selling on a daily or weekly basis, but I can tell you that one store sold 330 of those closed loop, 60 of the open loop gift cards in a week at one store location.
I mean, Piggly Wiggly has a pretty, they have a good Fuel Point program. So, I mean, I would assume they would kind of have that same thing that you have.
Ours is 4 times Fuel Points that last week, so that's, I mean, it's a compelling story. So that's part of the factor.
Attorney Riffle?
So are the gift cards you're talking about that are corporate, are they Visa, MasterCard, or American Express?
So all of the gift cards run through that interchange network, the Visa and MasterCard network for redemption. The difference between open loop and closed loop, open loop is you can use that anywhere. That's the Visa and your MasterCards. So you can buy them, you can take them to Walmart, you can take them to our store, you can use them anywhere. Where a closed loop, it has to be used at a specific retailer. So you're buying, you know, the Home Depot gift card that is just used at like a Home Depot.
So I bought Pick and Save gift cards before. They weren't labeled, any of those.
So if you bought a Banner gift card, that's a separate
Right,
occurrence.
okay, so I'm trying to.
We'll handle
understand.
your gift card issues later on, Stan.
So to me, what I understand is the current ordinance, though, is really addressing the open loop, right? We're not addressing
Yes.
closed loop at
Yes.
all
The
within the ordinance.
ordinance, the way that it's written, apologize for my interruption, the way that it's written, it's any gift card that runs through on the Visa or MasterCard network, which would impact all gift cards.
Does it
I don't
say
think that's how
that,
it's
that it
written.
says anything in the
Does.
network?
It says just.
Just one moment, we'll have a clarification.
It doesn't say running.
Used to make purchase via either the American Express, MasterCard, Visa networks.
Oh, it does? Oh.
Okay. So what would you propose to deal with that language?
So if your concern is around the Visa and MasterCard gift cards, we address those open loop gift cards. So that would be one proposal. Another proposal is to provide a prompt, the opportunity to add a prompt at self-checkout to ask for an ID. The average value on the gift cards being purchased at our stores, when I pulled that data from that 1 week period, we had 45, 35, and 25, depending on the different gift card
So
types.
would
So
you
they're very small
propose
value.
language that would say in excess of $50?
No, I wouldn't, no.
No, I'm asking her.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm trying to address her issue.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so I think, you know, something in excess of or at a certain level, if our average value is $45, I think something 100 or, you know, it sounds like 500 is
What
kind of
happens
the.
if you buy 10 of them? So it
Yeah, then
really
you buy
doesn't
10
solve the
yeah.
problem. So,
Yeah, then you're
Yeah.
gonna flag the system. The way that our self-checkouts currently work and our checkout systems work, it's a
Okay.
$2,000 and $3,000 threshold that prompts or sometimes freezes the system
Alderman
depending on how.
Shellpepper,
But
and you're
to
welcome
me,
to
it
stay
sounds
there.
like the two issues, though, aren't necessarily the dollar value, but it's addressing the open loop cards and being more clear that this is really, because I thought the original intention of the ordinance, chief, was for those open loop cards, for the American, you know, Express gift card, the Visa gift card, not for the Chili's gift card.
Or Home
that is
Depot.
processed through that network. Is that correct, chief? That's correct. Right, and so as our ordinance is currently written, the Chili's gift card is included in that because it's ran through this Visa,
I think it
MasterCard
cor-
Express
that-
network.
That section needs to be probably
Correct.
So there's that piece, and then the other piece is how difficult, how onerous is it to add a prompt for every transaction, add a self-checkout?
Chief Pfister?
To say that, hey, if I'm purchasing this gift card on this open loop, hold on though, that I'm purchasing this gift card on this open loop, I'm getting a prompt just like if I was purchasing a bottle of alcohol that a store attendant needs to come and do this. How onerous is that? How easily can you do that?
That's something that we would have to address through the organization. Is it possible that a prompt? Absolutely. Does that prompt then have to be applied to all stores inside Oconomowoc and outside Oconomowoc? I'll have to dig a little bit deeper into.
Well, that was
Aldo?
one of your recommendations, though, was to have the prompt.
To have the option to add the prompt.
Right,
Yeah.
so.
Yep.
Alderman Douglas?
All right, so one of your, what
Let's get a copper
Alderman
bulb.
Shellpepper said, you recommend doing the prompt. And I think that's all we're looking for is the prompt, because then the person has to walk over. So how many gift card sales did you have in that month or week that you were saying?
Yeah, so May 3rd through 9th, let's see here, I had about 330 of the closed loop gift card with an average value of $40. Visa and MasterCard open loop gift cards, about 60 with an average $35 value. And Banner gift cards, about 65 and an average of $26 value. And that's just the one store location.
Okay, so we're talking about 500 in a week? And your alcohol sales are probably 15 times that in a week, which someone still has to walk up. So I don't understand what the big deal is of having to walk someone over 2 feet to say, yep, check the ID, just like you do for alcohol, like I did 3 days ago when I was there.
But I
Yeah,
think.
so the way the ordinance is written right now doesn't allow for
Right,
self-checkout at all.
We're not allowed to use self-checkout at all as the ordinance is currently written.
So-
Without any sign off, whatever, so.
That's what he's talking about.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So go to self-checkout, and it's gonna flag just like an alcohol sale, and the person has to walk over and
The light
verify it.
beeps.
The ID.
Yeah.
We could make
know.
that change, but as the ordinance is currently written, that would not be allowed.
Well, and the other aspect, if I'm hearing you correctly, that would be something you would consider and look at this store and other stores, but it's not a guarantee that you would comply, is that correct?
We would comply with the law, however, or the ordinance,
Okay.
however it ends up being written. It's just a matter of we have to figure out how to execute it.
Chief Pfister?
And
We may have you come
just to-
back up,
no,
so don't
and
go
just to
far.
clarify here, I have no problem going back and looking at this more, okay, and saying, and add, if we need to change something. My intent isn't the Chili's gift card, okay? That's not my intent, because the scammers don't want Chili's gift cards, because then I'm gonna sit at Chili's and wait for
Well,
it.
yeah, we
you know?
talked about that last
So-
time.
What's that?
They might want
Yes.
Amazon.
That's true.
Well, I have not had a case with Amazon. I looked into that, you guys talked about it and so forth. I have not, they scam on Amazon in a totally different way.
We need to come back to Alderman Douglas, please.
So you're talking about under the current ordinance, you can't do that with the self-checkout. But under the self-checkout in subsection 3, it says it's unlawful for a retail establishment to allow the purchase of a third-party gift cards at self-checkout kiosks where customers themselves scan the merchandise and pay without the assistance of an employee of the retail establishment. So the assistance is that them flagging it and entering in or looking at the ID. So it doesn't have to be rewritten.
Okay, so,
Alderman Rozak?
thank you, Mayor. So a couple things. I think the reason this debate is the way it is for two reasons. And I don't want to be too offensive, but we don't have a ton of good reasons being given by the chief as to why we should do this, other than some anecdotal stuff. Like, it would be helpful to have like, hey, we've had X amount in the last 6 months, or so there, and no offense, I mean, and you might not be able.
happen.
Yeah, and you might not know those numbers, so we're trying to solve a problem we can't quite wrap our head around. That's the first issue. The second issue is, we have a company that's saying, basically, boy, we could probably do this, but we really don't want to, and I don't really care if they want to or not. I also do think that there's some issues with the way this third-party gift card section is written. It's not clear, because the way it's written, it says if they are purchased through or via that service, and I think what the chief was trying to do is avoid the Visa, MasterCard, Discovery that you buy and then use somewhere else, not the other ones. So I do think that third-party gift card section under definitions got to be rewritten to make that really precise, is what we're trying to prevent. But as to the point of Pick and Save, which is interesting, and I'm not 100% behind everything in this ordinance, but a couple things they said. This ordinance will affect our points. Scammers are not in there typing in their little Pick and Save point card number. So I don't think it's going to affect their points program at all. They don't care about their points program. They care about scamming the credit card from the people they steal. So it's not going to affect their points program at all. That's nonsense. They also, there is no ordinance that we can put into place that's going to be absolutely perfect, that's not going to require some human interaction. So they're going to need some human interaction on this. It's just the way it's going to be. It's going to flag, and they've done it before. They've done it for alcohol, and they've done it for cigarettes, and they do it for other stuff. So there's no question they can do it. I think we should try to clarify that section on what we're trying to do. Douglas is right, the self-checkout, I think that section's
Agree.
fine.
Yeah, I agree.
And come back with just a rewritten section on what the real goal is, and that it does not affect the Chili's cards or whatever. She used the language, let's use their language, the closed loop and the open loop. Get it? I'm happy to drop some stuff in there if you want me to, because we should use their language and apply it to that section, so we're very clear what we're trying to prevent. And
Well,
then
and it
they
has
just
to
need
be really clear for the officers and what happens, and I continue to hear exceptions. Amazon card, all of these others, and the fact that, yeah, we don't know how much of a problem we really have, because a lot of it goes unnoticed. So I'm gonna throw out another idea or concept for consideration. Maybe we move forward on this resolution with a caveat that we readdress it and look at it in 6 months.
I think it needs to be right now.
I think it needs to be right now, and I'd like to make a motion.
Well, we need to make a motion to postpone this to a date.
That's what I was gonna make. I'd like to make a motion.
Go ahead.
I'd like to make a motion that we go ahead and table it for the purpose of rereading it and rewriting just the one. Is it table? I think the word is table, isn't it?
Motion to table.
Just say motion to table.
Motion to table.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Question.
Any further comments or discussion? Alderman
Can't
Spiegelberg.
discuss a motion.
Oh, to table, I'm sorry, I can't do that. So there's a motion, no, thank you, said the right thing.
What? He made a motion to table.
I second.
So we have a motion to table and a second, and there's no opportunity for discussion. So call roll, please.
Alderman Ellis.
Aye.
Alderman Spiegelberg. Alderman Mulder.
Aye.
Alderman Shellpepper.
Aye.
Alderman Maroney.
Aye.
Alderman Douglas.
Nay.
Alderman Rozak.
Aye.
And Alderman Altman Cloak.
Can I say something?
No, Alderman,
It's already over.
no, we are waiting for one more vote.
Aye.
So this item will be tabled. Thank you, Chief, for looking into it further. I think it's really, really important that we try to simplify this and improve this and bring this back to council. The challenging part is there's going to be no perfect clarification, and I
We're not
think
supposed to discuss this anymore.
we're going, I can do it. We can find something that hopefully will be helping the residents and protect the residents. And also understand too, we only have one vendor here. That's it. And we have many vendors here that said, hey, no problem, we're happy to do it. So consider all those things as we move forward. Thank you very much for coming, folks, and sharing your opinion. We appreciate it, and we value your business here in Oconomowoc. Let's move on to our next item, consider act on off-leash dog park concept plan at Roosevelt Park. Mr. Hepner.
I'm glad you all stayed for this item.
Duct tape.
So,
They're not going anywhere. They like to
so as my memo says, there continues to be very strong interest in an off-leash dog park. I think we've talked about this at the Park and Rec Board level. But we thought it made sense now that there's a growing committee of community members and starting to do some fundraising. Before they got to that stage, we'd want to receive conceptual approval from the council. So I'll walk through a few of the items. Location, I think everybody's settled on, is Roosevelt Park, so south of Forest Street, basically in what we call the DPW yard and some of the other lands to the south. It's a great space for it because it's a unutilized and underutilized space, and it really can't be used for any other recreational opportunities. Construction and operational cost, we're looking approximately at $150,000. Much of that goes towards fencing and gates, a water line as well, and some other items. It might be a little bit less than that, but that's the number we're using. Funding, the dog park group is planning to fundraise for this, but as we have a number of items out there, as you heard, Ozplaza and Splash Pad and Rockwell and others, I think it's worth the discussion, at least on the council level, if there's interest and appetite for doing some kind of capital project funding, maybe matching, maybe doing part of it, that kind of thing. When we talked to the Park and Rec Board, they're very in favor of this, but they also wanted the group to bring back kind of a rules policy sheet and then also a user fee structure. It's pretty typical for going to a dog park and paying a user fee, which the funds usually go back to that park, but we haven't really delved deep into that. So that's something the park board would like to see come forward. The other thing, we've talked about capital projects. One of the caveats of this land is that we currently use it for operations for DPW, utilities, and parks. And we do need to create space, a different place for some of this use. So timing is kind of, we're trying to push this with fundraising this year and get things going in fall if possible, but this might be a 2024 thing as well. So those are kind of the pieces to it. Jennifer's been hugely involved in it, and Kevin as well. And if others want to share some comments, that's great. Otherwise, that's kind of my presentation. And I didn't even put up this. Hold on.
Alderman Mulder.
Yeah, so I guess my first question is, I mean, this is to me the last domino that needs to fall, and we're like voting on it first. like, the first thing we need to do, I mean, for this to happen, we have to get rid of all those pilings of dirt that are there, right? And to be able to do that, we have to have somewhere to put the new piles of dirt, which is where the softball fields are. So we have to get rid of the softball fields, we have to move those to the northeast park.
well, no.
Like, this feels like really,
I think the reason we're bringing it forward is it would help with the fundraising piece, knowing that, hey, the council does support this location, the timing is kind of unknown. Yeah, there's definitely some moving pieces with the operations. We're not putting the operations though on top of the softball diamonds. There's another location that can work. But there are some things that have to happen before we can turn this into a dog park. That is true.
Administrator Fry?
Yeah, just so for Alderman Mulder, a lot of that material down there is not anything that we're saving. It's just that it's getting stored there, and then periodically we haul everything out. And so that's what we would be doing, is hauling out. We do have another storage yard. If there was some material that we wanted to keep, we do have another storage yard out Second Street that we could take the materials to. So just to address that part of it.
isn't that where, when you do the borings and you have stuff that needs to dry out, isn't that where you currently put it, in that area?
Correct, it goes there now. We have other
The
places
other
where we
places,
could,
okay, so
where we can
for
take
new
it
stuff would go somewhere
in
else.
the interim.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, you're looking for what?
Conceptual approval of the dog park being placed here in Roosevelt Park and giving the committee an opportunity to fundraise for it, I think is what we're looking for as a motion.
Alderman Altman-Cloth, do you have any comments? You or Alderman Ellis?
No, just that, one part of the process of this, like Craig had said, we will need an approval from you guys tonight for the conceptual plan, and then once we get that, then the Friends of the Park Board will then be officially our fiscal partner. And I'll kind of let Kevin maybe talk a little bit on this, but we already have some people in the community that want to donate to this. We just have nowhere to put their money. So it's kind of a big part for that, so.
As a matter of fact, even give you a little history, I was approached by one individual in particular, and he said, I got this money burning a hole in my pocket, and I want you guys to put a dog park someplace. And I went, okay. So basically, all we're really looking for is just a kind of thumbs up saying, yeah, that's pretty cool. And then at that point in time, we can get the ball rolling. We're not gonna be putting any, it's not like what's happening over at the tunnel right now, which, by the way, is really cool. I'm really liking that.
You were gonna hand dig that.
The shovel is still in the car, okay, just so you know that.
You're on call.
Thank you. But I really think that there was two other individuals since then have come to me and said, I want to also donate into this. So I'm really excited about that and understanding us as I think the more money we can bring outside of council, I think the more the community in itself is going to really take that as their own. And I'm really excited about that.
And then one other part, we probably we're not a very dog-friendly community when you think about it, because dogs are not allowed in any of our, no, we're not. Dogs are not allowed in any of our parks,
That's
except
not
for
true.
except for on paved paths,
On leashes,
on leashes.
which is not what happens.
Which is, yeah, unfortunately is not what happens, and then you take Chapman Park, for example, which is probably our worst offenders, to the point that, Chief, how many times have we had to put back up the no dogs allowed sign because people just take it down and take it home with them? So it really would be nice to have a designated spot within our city where dogs are truly welcomed.
Alderman Mulder?
Yeah, I think the location's a good one, and what dogs generate waste? How much additional, what do you think of ongoing costs associated with this?
Yeah, that's really the main cost for a dog park is the waste and emptying trash cans. I don't see it as, it's probably a weekly occurrence, but.
How does it compare to the one in West Bend?
Size-wise?
No, from a standpoint of maintenance.
It smells.
Well.
Because
they
you
have-
know that one well, so I'm just
Yeah,
trying to.
they have a group that does the internal collection, and then it goes to like where the parking lot is, and then it gets taken by like a John's.
Okay.
So it's pretty easy that way. There's not really much more maintenance to it. People are really, it's a social place. And this one shows, which I didn't really discuss, but both a large dog area and a small dog area, size-wise, and that will determine what that is, probably a weight. But ultimately, a small dog can go in either, but a large dog can't go in the small dog area. We have about 1.5 acres, which is pretty large for a small dog area. We have 14-ish acres, give or take. Not all this is usable. There's some wetland, there's forest. We plan on keeping the trees, having some pathways, an open area where the yard is. So it's a great plan. It's a great space to use. We have to obviously do some more details on the user fees and those kind of things, but it makes a lot of sense in this location.
Alderman Rozak.
Can you scroll up to the top there, to the bottom of it? No, the other way, I'm sorry, the bottom. Is there space for my archery park here?
No, we're gonna put that at Rosenau Creek.
We're putting it in a different spot.
Oh, okay.
We didn't want target practice.
Next to the dog park?
And Imagination.
That's probably a good idea. That's changed since I was last on Park and Rec Board, because we were looking back there, okay. Is 14.7 acres a big, I mean,
It's a decent size. The one in West Bend is 10 acres.
what about Neshota? What's the
That's
one?
30 or 40.
Oh, is it that big?
40.
Oh, wow.
That's a
Wow.
county
And then I
park,
think
so
Jefferson is like, what, 100?
I don't know.
It's something crazy.
I'm just, the one thing I'm, actually, Douglas and I were talking about this on the side here was, the fee. And I know that we had talked about that when I was last on the Park and Rec Board, but do you think that's gonna be hard to enforce? You know, and who's gonna go out and enforce whether they've got a sticker or a fee or whatever? I mean,
What we are investigating is within the city, when you do your dog tags or dog license, potentially tying to that.
okay.
It is
yeah.
something we don't want the police to enforce, nor park staff, nor really any staff needs to do this.
All right, I'll do it.
But we would try and tie it to that.
Yeah, so you get your dog license for $40 or $20, and you get a park pass for $3 or something too with it.
Won't be that cheap, but
Or
it'll be
whatever,
something.
yeah,
yes.
okay.
Well, and it was interesting because I asked Lori about that, and she had said in a different municipality, when the dog park fee was tied to like the licensing, how all of a sudden, all these more dogs were licensed within the
Yeah.
city. So, you know, and then also that kind of goes to help offset the
Offset
price of,
maintenance,
you know, the collecting the garbage, the little bags.
Alderman Maroney?
Yeah, we were talking about that at Park and Rec, and I think some of the members actually talked about, you know, a $15, $25 fee would be reasonable, but then we went back to how do we enforce that? You know, I mean, I think there's a lot of issues with enforcing a fee, you know.
Alderman Mulder?
Are you looking for the motion to include the $75,000 contribution from the city at this point? Or you look, what are you looking for because you say you want the $75,000 matching, but it doesn't have that in the motion.
Well, I guess I'd like to get a direction on that. You don't have to vote necessarily, because that'd be part of the capital project budgets.
But didn't we already approve that last year with the
Well,
capital
last year
budget?
what was approved in the capital budget, so was 75,000, but it was listed as donations. So that's already in there, but to make it 150, we don't have it at 150. We'd have to add 75,000, either through donations or a combination of capital money and donations, or however you want to do it. So I guess you can put that in a motion if you'd like to, or have discussion or direction.
If you think about it, they don't want to start fundraising if they don't have council support.
I mean, I generally feel like, you know, matching, if we matched the skate park, why wouldn't we match the dog park? I mean, can we make a motion, well, partially.
Yeah, we didn't match it.
We put the first.
125.
We matched,
so.
truly, we were matching the original idea. As it expanded and grew, that we let the
Great.
donations continue, and I would see the same thing. If we say it's 150,000, and also they wanted to do something elaborate that costs 200,000, well, I don't think that should be on the city, but
Right.
it's a possibility. But the basic piece of it makes sense.
So can we, I would, if we wanted, we can fund it out of reserves. We could make right, we could do that as here we just need 2/3.
Or do you have to include that in your motion?
Majority.
We can't put that motion in here based on.
That's what I thought. You gotta have to have a budget motion to do that.
For 2024, you'd have to do it if you want to do it separate today.
But
Then
what
it'd
can
have
we
to
do
be,
now to signal to the fundraising group that we will?
tell them that you vote on your approval of this concept plan to move forward, and the council supports a dog park at this location with these core parameters, and then the funding aspect has to come next.
Yeah, but you could direct for staff to bring back a resolution for a budget amendment.
But a budget amendment will also take 6 out of 8 of you to vote yes. So if you want to start this park this fall, then you would need to do that, and that would have to be the direction, Craig, of
I'll
your
let
your
Jennifer
board.
and Kevin, you guys are spearheading this. How do you want to do it?
I like the direction you're going with the motion you want to make, and then
I do.
direct,
Budget amendment.
Right.
direct the staff to move with a budget
It's
amendment.
not going to be money we're going to find in general fund. I mean, that
Right.
Yeah, just what, I agree. We just can't make that vote now. It was agendized as a concept plan, not as a budget amendment or an approval or disapproval of adding $75,000. So that has to be done formally, I think.
Correct.
I'm not opposed to it, but it should be done as a formal
I'll
amendment.
move that we, accept the conceptual plan and, I guess is that separate than part of that motion to have the staff bring back a budget amendment for the $75,000?
I'd second it.
Can I third it?
Any further discussions or comments? Call roll, please.
Alderman Ellis?
Aye.
Alderman Spiegelberg?
Aye.
Alderman Mulder?
Aye.
Alderman Shellpepper?
Aye.
Alderman Maroney?
Aye.
Alderman Douglas?
Aye.
Alderman Rozak?
Aye.
And Alderman Altman Cloth.
Aye.
Great.
Thank you.
Next up, thank you, Craig. Next up, consider act on Resolution 23-R3126, approving the appointment of the official city newspaper for 2023 and 2024. Tina?
This is a housekeeping item we do annually. We sent out for bids, and Oconomowoc Enterprise is the lowest bid. We're going to recommend them.
No, really?
Motion to approve as presented by the clerk.
Second?
Any further discussions, comments? Call roll, please.
Alderman Ellis?
Aye.
Alderman Spiegelberg?
Aye.
Alderman Mulder?
Aye.
Alderman Shellpepper?
Aye.
Alderman Maroney?
Aye.
Alderman Douglas?
Aye.
Alderman Rozak?
Aye.
And Alderman Altman Cloth.
Aye.
Great, on to staff reports. Do we have any staff reports today? Like to have any reports or comments from Alderman? Alderman Maroney?
Just wanted to make a couple comments. We had the fentanyl awareness last Saturday at the city beach. I was there with the mayor. We jumped in for a great cause. And there's a lot of great websites out there to get an education about fentanyl and how it's destroying communities. And I'm really glad that Oconomowoc is part of that. And we had a great event on Saturday. One other thing, we have Zoe's Mission. We're going to be picking up garbage on Sunday, June 4th from noon to 2 p.m. That's spearheaded by Lou Kavesky. And if you're not familiar with Zoe's Mission, she was a young girl who got fed up with the trash in her community and decided to do something about it. So we'll be meeting there on June 4th for that. So it's a great cause as well.
Any other Alderman Mulder?
Just real quick, I think the issue we were discussing today with the gift cards is a great reason for not always going and, sacrificing the second reading. I think it's good to, sometimes it's a no-brainer. This is a good time, and I think that, the comment about, the big corporation, also maybe the biggest, employer when you consider the Roundy's Distribution Center, and I think we want to make sure that all of our community stakeholders get voice in this. So I think we did the right thing in just listening to them, taking that consideration, because it is a different perspective than we heard from local businesses. So.
Any other comments, Alderman Altman Cloth?
So last fall, my husband and I made a not good purchase on a vehicle that quickly died on us a few months later. And while we were not very happy about it, I had learned from the world of Facebook that the best place to donate a vehicle is to your local fire department, which I don't know why I never thought of that. And so I instantly reached out to Chief Bowen and I said, "Do you take vehicles?" He said, "Absolutely." I was approached by one of his employees out in the community, and she said, I heard you're gonna be donating this vehicle. She's like, I can't even begin to tell you how incredible that is. And so we look forward to seeing the pictures of that being cut up and whatever other crazy things you guys decide to do to it for training.
Chief, what do you do with them? I'd never heard of that, so thank you for bringing it up, Jennifer.
They crunch them and extricate people.
It doesn't run. There's no, the transmission is dead.
So kind of like the
We-
burning ordinance.
We've got a budget amendment for the transmission now we have to pay, fix, so.
Sometimes we're very grateful to residents that donate a vehicle or a house for us to train on. You know, training is so important to us, so to be able to do extrication training, we get a lot of new employees, about 40 new employees a year. Be able to practice our techniques, our skills on a vehicle or a vehicle fire, or, you know, even now electric cars. You know, they're starting to be donated so that we can train on prevention and be prepared. So thank you, Alderman Cloth, for that kind donation.
Yep.
Well, I'm assuming there's a tax deduction for that, so.
Oh, yes.
Sounded like it might have been a junker that might probably.
And we get that as
Maserati.
well with people that are donating a house that they're gonna tear down and have to throw scrap away.
I
Well,
should saw that before we tore ours down.
see? Next time.
Any other comments from Alderman? Any other comments before we move forward? Alderman Ellis? No, okay, good. Comments from Mayor, I have a proclamation today for the EMS week. Whereas emergency medical services is a vital public service, and whereas the members of emergency medical service teams are ready to provide life-saving care to those in need 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And whereas access to quality emergency care dramatically improves the survival and recovery rate of those who experience sudden illness or injury. And whereas emergency medical services has grown to fill the gap by providing important out-of-hospital care, including preventive medicine, follow-up care, and access to telemedicine. And whereas the emergency medical services system consists of first responders, emergency medical technicians, paramedics, emergency medical dispatchers, firefighters, police officers, educators, administrators, pre-hospital nurses, emergency physician, trained members of the public, and other out-of-hospital medical care providers. And whereas the members of the emergency medical services team, whether career or volunteer, engage in thousands of hours of specialized training and continue education to enhance their life-saving skills. And whereas it is appropriate to recognize the value and accomplishments of emergency medical service providers by designating Emergency Medical Services Week. Now, therefore, I, Robert P. Magnus, Mayor of the City of Oconomowoc, in recognition of this event, do hereby proclaim the week of May 21st to May 27th, 2023 as Emergency Medical Services Week. With an EMS strong theme, EMS Week, where emergency care begins, I encourage the community to observe this week with the appropriate programs, ceremonies, and activities. And I can say with pride that we work really hard for our public services, and we just did that earlier tonight in trying to receive more funding after the horrible tragedy and loss of Sarah Debink. So my heart goes out to them, to their families, to Chief, and Chief, thank you for all that you do, and I would like to entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Have a good evening, everyone.